Hi everyone, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. Today's open lines where I basically hang out with you and have you call in over Telegram to share your stories, whether it be alien related, crypto, cryptozoology, I guess, Bigfoot, another word, chupacabra, whatever weird stories you have. So anyway, today I wanted to announce, and actually a couple of days ago made a video about having Sally Faubion on for at least the first 10-15 minutes to just do some quick numerology readings for you guys. I've noticed last time when I had her on, it was great. Basically, just you guys seem to have enjoyed it. So I asked her back. We were having some technical difficulties. She got a new computer and didn't realize Skype wasn't on, and she's trying to basically install it. So she might not be on immediately, but the second I see her logged in, if she managed to do that, I'll bring her in because I really wanted to have you guys get that opportunity. And yeah, she was apologizing that she just realized that there might not be any Skype on the computer. So she's working on that part, but I figured we can just get going with the show. And so yeah, if you want to basically call in over Telegram and speak to me directly, or if and when Sally comes in today and you want to give your name and birth date to her directly, download the Telegram app on your computer or phone. The link is in the description below. Join the voice chat that's going on right now. It seems we have a few people there listening, or they may be waiting for her to come on to ask her some questions, and also share your stories, because on Telegram you can log in just to listen. You don't necessarily have to talk to me, but if you do, make sure you tap that little guy and on the bottom of the screen, which tells me that you're interested to talk, and when it's your time I'll bring you in. If you have questions just that you do not wish to basically convey yourself over voice, just in the chat, whether you are in Facebook or YouTube, just put 3 little stars there, followed by your question. In this case, for Sally, it would be 3 little stars followed by your name and first name and date of birth. Because sometimes we have people from Europe and US. Please make sure you actually write down the month, because US is month, day, year. Europe is day, month, year. So if you are in the lower days and months, it can get confusing of which one is which. So yeah, let me see who's in chat. Hazel, welcome. Tana, welcome. Yeah, thank you. This is exactly how I would like you guys to submit, like what Tana had. Now, of course, I believe, yeah, there's no 31 months, so I know for sure that that's month, day, year in Tana's case. Isa, welcome. Adam. Star Brother, welcome as well. Welcome, Nick. Lodi. There you go. Hazel, thank you very much. Hazel also submitted her name and birth date. Bradley, how you doing? Jacqueline. Yeah, I will, and Mr. Catfish 2100. Yeah, I was really hoping I could connect with her beforehand, but she'll probably hopefully connect later, and it would be unfortunate if it doesn't work out today, but the show goes on for quite a bit, so I'm hoping that she keeps on trying. I was hoping to have her on maybe once a month or so, just for these, hopefully next time a lot quicker connection, to just start the open lines, go into some of the numerology readings for some of you that are interested, and then switch over to open lines and listen to your stories. So but on Friday at 7 p.m., I just wanted to let you guys know today I was able to confirm Penny Kelly. And she's basically an author of a book that I've only recently heard from my friend Michael. She wrote a book called Robes, a book of coming changes. And it seems to be very interesting, all that she's covering, and how that whole experience came about. It's basically about these beings, 5 robed beings that showed up and started sharing some pictures with her and future events and what that means for humanity. So I'm very excited to talk to her and hear it from her of what else she has to say. In case you guys have noticed, most of the time I know about the book. Sometimes I don't, but I don't do any kind of pre-interviews. I just let the guests talk and cover whatever they want to cover about their book or the subjects that they're proficient in. So let me switch over here. So if there's someone that would like to, I'm sorry for those that are anxiously waiting, but if there's someone that wants to start out and to speak to me, I'll just bring you in and we'll have a conversation until Sally comes in. If she doesn't, we'll just continue. But I promise I did not trick you. We just had some technical difficulties. We'll hopefully work it out today. All right. Let's see, who do we have? Switch over to voice chat. All right, Steven. Steven, you are unmuted on my end. Unmute yourself on yours, and you'll be able to speak to me.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. How are you?
All right. I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm glad we're able to connect. I know we chatted a bit earlier, so I'm glad you actually made it. I wasn't sure if you were able to come in, but yeah, I was actually looking forward to hearing your story as well. It seems to be very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was excited to talk about it. I just like your friend Sally here. I had to throw some stuff together at the last minute, and so I did get everything to work. So I'm here. But if she shows up, then feel free to mute me and let her do her thing for a little bit, and we can talk about my story whenever. So.
Well, if anything, I'll definitely, just mute you, get back to you again,
Yeah.
because she's only going to be on for about 10, 15 minutes. And I know there's been plenty of people already submitting their names and birth dates. So I really would like to get to her. Actually,
Yeah,
speaking of the
absolutely.
devil, well, Stephen, this might be perfect timing. I'm going to mute you now. It seems like that she's on. So let me connect with her
Yeah.
now, and then I'll get back to you afterwards, okay?
Perfect.
All right, good deal. All right, let's see here. Okay, maybe you guys don't have to listen to the Skype dial. Okay. Okay, let's try this again. Yes, hi Sally, can you hear me? Okay. Right, you won't be able to see me, but you might want to click on your camera so I can see you, because right now all I have is voice. And once we get through that, because I'm actually live right now, so people are watching us connect online. Well, let's, right. If you click on the camera, does it allow you to actually bring in your video? Right. Okay. Well, Sally, let's do this. So hopefully for next time that, I hope you have someone that could help you out to install camera drivers and all that, but you're coming through, let me unmute you here. You're coming through audio wise, and so people can still hear you. And so
Okay.
at least we can do this for about 10-15 minutes. And I was just telling everyone earlier about how hopefully we could do this once a month and actually bring you in through Skype and see you. But yeah, do you mind if we just do this over the
No, I
voice?
really
Okay.
don't. I mean, however we can do it, I'm fine with doing it. I just wish I knew how to get that camera to not have the slash through it.
Right.
That's the
Yeah,
only.
you're probably going to have to install the driver for your camera since it's a new computer, as
Okay.
you mentioned earlier, but that's okay. We'll chat about that later. So let me, um, okay, but let me go back to the very beginning and see if I can start out. There were some people that wanted, have already submitted their names and their birthdays. And of course, for those of you watching, after Sally gives you just this quick reading, if you want more, you can always, in the description below, I included her links to book a longer session if you're interested. And you can find all the other information about her and the website there. So this is, again, just for fun to do about 10-15 minutes. If you want something longer, don't hesitate to book a session with Sally. She's great. Because my wife and I,
Yeah,
we got a reading.
sallysnumbers.com is all they have to do on Google. They'll
Right.
find me, sallysnumbers.com.
Yeah, that too. Good deal. And
Okay.
so, yeah, we just, she did a reading for my wife and I, and it was like this live reading, I believe you called it, and it was phenomenal. So I thought this would be something interesting for all of you to, at least for 10-15 minutes, get some feedback from her. Okay, well, so let me go back here. Sally, one of the first people was Tana Hassi Alexander dash Alexander. I don't know
How's that spelled?
it's Tana. That's the
Okay.
name, and then the
Yeah.
birth date is 8/31/66.
Okay. And would she be there now? Let's see, 12, 13.
She submitted on chat, so later on I'll see if there's any kind of feedback. But I figured you just tell her what you have, and then we'll move on. We probably won't have much time for any kind of longer feedback.
Okay. So I can't do too much with just her only one name there, but
it's Tana Hassi. Oh, okay. Well, do you only need the first name?
no, I need the full name, unfortunately.
Right. So it's Tana Hassi dash Alexander. So it's HASSE dash Alexander.
Now, I wonder if that's a married name, though. Alexanderer. Okay, I'm going to just do the Hassi, Tana Hassi, and see what that works out. 13, 14, 15, 16. So yeah, probably that's a married name with the dash, because that's how many Americans do it anyway these days, women.
Right.
Okay, so are you ready for me to go, or how's this go?
Just
Okay.
whatever you have.
Well, what I see her as being is someone who is very independent, very strong-minded, very intelligent, very unique and unusual. I mean, she walks to her own drumbeat, and she's not somebody who I would call her. There's numbers that I call the renegade numbers. She has 3 of them. I mean, her name Tana Hassi, if it's just Hassi from birth, she has a 7 there, and the full addition of her birth date is a 7, and the 4 is also a renegade number. She's born on the 31st. So what I mean by that is that your people, renegades are people who can think out of the box. In other words, you can come up with your own ideas, you can work on your own and have a very unique approach to your work, and you don't really like having bosses. She would be more private about herself. She'd keep her cards pretty close to her chest, but when she does deliver what she needs to deliver, she's very forthright. She will tell you her truth. Let me put it that way, because she's not going to lie to you. She'd be good at lying because she has the 7, and the 7 can keep secrets for a lifetime to their grave. But the point is, when she does deliver something, she's going to be very, very forthright and honest. And I would say that, and she's very intelligent with these numbers. Her first name is a 7. Her Hassie is a 7, and the full addition of her birth date is a 7. So, and if I add the two, the 7 and the, wait a minute, is that a 9? Yeah. If I add the 7 to the 7, we get a 5. So she'd be an energetic individual as well. But anyway, let's see, what else can I tell her? She has the T as
It's
her
okay.
first
We
name.
don't have to go in too long because
Okay.
there's plenty of people out there that also
Okay.
wanted to more,
All
but
right.
this was just a quick one. So I made I'm sorry, I made the announcement earlier about just to give, because last time you were doing just first names and birthdays.
Yes.
Can you do something with that? Because a lot of them did that
Yes.
based on what I given
Yes.
them. So I
Yes.
apologize. I don't have a lot of the last names as well.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one is Hazel, Hazel.
Okay.
And
And the birthday?
its month is 6, day 2, 1957.
Okay. So that is a 4 and 8 equals 3. So Hazel has the 2 as her personality number. The day on which you're born is called the personality number. So that's a very sweet, giving, caring, sensitive, gentle person. The full addition of her birth date is a 3. So the 3 is more, well, actually it's a 12-3, which is the 12 is called the number of sacrificing your own needs for the sake of others. So she would love children. She would be very good as a teacher, for instance. Excellent teacher. She would also, let's see, I'm going to do her first name real quickly here. 3 8 is 24, 25. So she has the 25 as her first name, which reduces to a 7. So the 7 is also always the number of the genius, it's called. The 7 is the genius. So she has genius aspects to her. She has the H as her first initial, which means that she would be, very class act, like a class act. She's always going to present herself in a very positive and really even refined way. And also being born in the 6th month, those are, I mean, she's a Gemini.
Sally,
so am I
forgive me for
going
one
too
quick
far?
second. Sally, I'm sorry,
Sure.
just real quick. What did I tell you? Because Hazel was saying no, 2nd June 1957. Is that what I gave you?
Yes, June 2nd, but I add the full edition of her birth
Oh, no,
date.
no, that's great. That's great. No, because she was just saying like, no, 2nd June, meaning that I've given you the wrong date. So I apologize. If you have it as June 2nd, then we're good.
Yes, I have it as June 2nd. Yeah. And June 2nd, I think they get confused because I just add all the numbers together and it becomes a 3. The 6 plus 2 plus 1, 9, 5, 7 reduces to the 12, which is a 3, then reduces down to a 3. That's what I was doing. I did mention the 2, which I said is a very gentle individual, very considerate, very, very, very good with children. I don't know whether she works with children at all, but she could also have tremendous artistic abilities. And her name is a 7, so she'd be, very unique in her approach to if anything that she does that's artistic or entertaining. She can be someone who's a great entertainer that really enjoys having people to her home, and her parties would be remembered by everyone once they left. But anyway, she also has the 8 in the first phase of life by adding the 6 to the 2, the month to the day. And the 8 is always called the teacher's pet number because they usually get all of their work in on time, and what they turn in is usually very right.
Okay. Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
The next one I have is Juta or Utah. It's Jutta.
Okay.
and that's October 3rd, 1984. She's actually, I believe, from Germany, but so she won't. She's really late there, and very few can actually. Hazel is also already in the Thursday timeline already as well. So, anyways, some submitted and basically asked if I could give you that, so they'll get this message later.
Oh, okay. So Juta has an 8 destiny and is born on a 3-day. She has the same numbers as Martha Stewart. I don't know whether they know Martha Stewart over there, but anyway, that would make her a very creative, industrious person who puts things together in a very exemplary way. The 8 is called the number of the exemplar. So she sets the example for others. She would be a very good writer, actually, because she's can pick errors out of a book that's been copywritten or read 40 times, but she can still find errors because of her eye for quality, actually, all the time. And let's see, so 7 and 8. So, and her attitude number, which she has gone through, was a 4. So the 4 is someone who is very, very industrious. And so I would just say basically who she is, though, is someone who would be artistic, would be talented in various ways. I mean, if she's taken it into the left brain, then she could just be a winner as far as almost any occupation that she wanted to put herself into, because the 8 can't be out of control, so they find a way to be in control all the time by doing everything as right as can be. Okay?
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes.
The next one is Bradley, Bradley, and it is September 19th, 83.
Okay, so 3, 4. So Bradley has a 1 with a 4 as his birthday numbers, and that makes him what I was calling earlier a renegade, which just means that he can make up his own mind. He would be a very conscientious, hardworking, dedicated, responsible individual. He would be best in his own business, because it's not that he can't work for a boss, but it's just that because he works so hard, he would never be given would be given what he deserves for the amount of work that he will do. It would be hard for him to say no once he gets into an occupation with someone and they want him to do more and more. So he really is best in his own business if he can affect that. And he also has leadership abilities with the 19. So that's another reason it would be better for him to have his own business. Let's see. So his name number is 6, 7, and 7 is 5, and 8 is 4. His name number is also a 4. So he's the quintessential entrepreneurial kind of guy. I don't know where Bradley lives, but if he lives in America, he should start his own business. This is the way I see it.
He's in South Africa.
Oh, okay. Well, he's got the numbers that anybody would want to have him come to work for them. I mean, he can be stubborn, and he can be very forthright. He can really deliver things that kind of, take people aback a bit, because he's going to speak his truth. Again, that's like the other lady that I read earlier. But he's just honest is the point, too. So he has my destiny number. So he's a stand-up guy in my book.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, no, he was just, his feedback says, bless this lady, I'm starting a business now. I mean, I'm in the process of starting a business. So there's some feedback there.
Oh, that's good.
So the next one is Jacqueline, and it's spelled JACQUELINE.
Okay.
And that's 12/29/61.
Okay, so 7, 8. Okay, she also has a 4, which is really interesting as her destiny number. The destiny number is the most powerful. It's kind of the engine that makes your psyche move in a certain direction, let's say. And she has a number that's a very kind of malleable number, very placating in a way, because the 2911 is a number, it's a very psychic number as well. It's a high master number, actually, in numerology, the 29, because it reduces to the 11. So she has high intuition, and she could have a 22 as her 4. I didn't run it down that way, but it's probably a 22. So she has the 11 and the 22, which could make her, you know, someone who can create things. The 22 is called the number of the person who can come up with concepts. Gosh, there's a word for it. It's wow, now I'm forgetting it, but well, it'll come to me probably after we hang up here. But anyway, she can come up with concepts and ideas that most people can't come up with. So that's what I'm talking about with that. So let's see, 1 and 8 is 9, and 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So her name, Jacqueline, is a 7. And the 7 is also there again. It's called the number of the genius, or the brainy person. So she has the capability of, she's got some pretty decent numbers here. I mean, she's really could take herself places. I mean, she probably already has at her age at this point. Also, she's a Capricorn, so they like to rise to the highest level that they can, and she would be someone who would work for it to get there very hard and very diligently and very conscientiously. So I give her a gold star too.
Great. Thank you for that. So I know I said 10, 15 minutes. Sally, do you maybe have another 5 more minutes to cover a few more people?
Sure.
Because
I had the evening here, so that's fine with me.
Well, because this is usually our open lines where people call in to share their, weird and beautiful stories. But I thought just in the beginning because we absolutely love what you did for us, I thought, people enjoyed this, and obviously they do, because a lot of them are putting in their chat that they want their numbers read as well. And so I figured maybe 5 minutes or so, maybe 10 if possible, and then, as always, for those that I might not get to, don't fret. All the links are in the description below. Check them out. It basically, Sally does sessions as well. You can book a session with her and get even more detail than you are getting now. This is just us doing it for fun, and so we'll just go through as however many we can.
Yeah, because this is a very cursory way of looking at it. I mean, I go into great lengths once I get the full name from birth and the full birth date. So the thing is, this is just cursory. So if you don't identify with some of the things I'm saying, there's so much more once I have the full Monty, so to speak, the full story of your life. Which
definitely, and I can contest to that, because I believe you do record it as well. So there was about an hour long, and it was just packed with information. So I really appreciated that. So the next one I have is Sheldon, SHELDON, and it's 10/24/75.
Okay, well, this is a sweet man. Let's see. So 17 and 5 makes 22, 36, 46. Well, wait a minute. Is that right? 4, 6 is 1, 2. No, 47. So this is a man that has an 11 destiny. The other woman that I just read was born on an 11 day. So what that means, he's also come here on a high mission, I would say. The 11 is a number of illumination in many ways. It can put his name in lights. He would be a great speaker. He also has a great heart. He's born on the 24th, which is the cosmic love number, 2 and 4 making 6. All female-oriented numbers, just meaning nurturing. So he cares about helping people, especially those who can't help themselves, as well as others, maybe not the ones that can and don't, but certainly the ones that do need help. He would certainly have a heart for them, and he would be a soft touch, and many people will come up to him and open up to him and tell him their problems because of that 11, because the 11 is like 2 high-tuned antennas that other people, because we are just energy, can pick up on his antennas and know that here's somebody I can go over and unload my stuff to. So if he sits down on a bench in a park, he's going to find, I call it the statue in the park number, because you know what the pigeons do on the shoulders of the statues, they kind of poop on them. So I mean, it's like people come over and give them their troubles, and he wonders, why me, quite probably. But anyway, he's a guy that came wanting to help people in one way or another. So 2 and 7 makes 9, and 4 and 5. Sheldon is a 5, so he's quick on the draw too. He can come up with things very readily. He's also, I believe, a Scorpio, so he's deep as well with his spirituality, I would say. Scorpios are, they go deep with what they learn and carry with them. So it's a very impressive birth date, actually, to me. Okay.
Okay. So that was Sheldon. I'm sorry, I'm getting myself confused in my own list here. The next one I have is John, Jon.
Okay.
And that's a 12/08/61.
Okay. And then 6, 1. So 7, 8. And 8 is 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, we have here a man that has to have his own business, really, because he does not want to have a boss. And it would be capable of running his own show and calling his own shots, but he does have to find the thing that he really loves to make it work for him. He probably has done that because his 8 is a quality operator, and usually the 8, when they do anything, they do it more right than almost anyone, because they don't like to feel out of control. So they make sure that they have all their T's crossed and I's dotted and everything in its place. And even if they felt in the middle of the night they made a mistake, they're going to go back in the middle of the night and brush their tracks out, because they're exemplary in everything that they do and usually honored for that. But he's also such a strong personality, especially being a Sagittarius as well. It's the know-it-all sign, but they do know it all, is the point. So they're very, very bright. So hopefully John has his own business, or at least is a leader in whatever it is that he is doing.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
He belongs in. Yeah.
The next one is Orlando, Orlando.
Okay.
And it's 10/23/76.
Yeah, 6 is 23, so 23 and 20, 46, 56. Well, here's another 11 destiny man, another sweet man, actually, and another Scorpio, I believe. So, hey, you guys should team up or something. Well, maybe not. You both would work better. No, anyway, so you have a high sensitivity, highly intuitive, very easy for people to get along with, very chameleon in nature, where you can adapt to almost anyone readily and have them feel comfortable with you. You are someone that I would think would be quite popular with most everyone that meets you. They'd want to continue to have a relationship with you. Because of that, you would be a warm and, just again, very warm man, but also highly perceptive. When people have the 11, and we've got a few 11s here, you really do have those high tuned antennas. So trust what you're receiving, because that's coming from your soul as well. Your soul's picking up on things. You have a greater ability to hear what your soul is delivering to you than most people, because of that high vibration that you pack with you. So just when you think something, you're pretty right. And you probably already know that at this time in your life, at this age, so let's see. So your name number is a 7, also your first name. So there's the brainy part too. And the 7 and the 11 go very, very well together, because I don't know why. I mean, in Las Vegas, they're always saying, come 7-Eleven, come 7-Eleven. I think it's because the 7 is brainy and the 11 is psychic, you know, so hey, you can't get a better a better combination than that. And the 23-5 is awfully nice number as well. So yeah, this is these are pretty stellar people here. Stellar audience you have here.
Oh, that's good to know. Thank you for the compliment too. Are you ready for the next person?
Sure.
Okay, so what about 3 more? And again, everyone else watching, I apologize. We will not be able to get to most of you. Like I said, this is not the main focus of the show. But again, we will do this once a month. And as I mentioned before, do not worry. You can book a session with Sally anytime you like. So everything's in the description below. Do not hesitate. So Sally, I'm going to do 3 more. And then hopefully for next time, you get your camera fixed too, so we can see as well.
Yes. Okay.
All right.
Great.
Okay. So the next one is Willis, Willis.
Okay.
And it's 10/25/72.
Okay, we have another Scorpio. Actually, he's born on Picasso's birthday, I believe, 1918-19. So that is 7, 8, 9. So he has a 9 destiny. The 9 is called the number of the universal humanitarian. And the 25-7 is, again, a brainy number. It's like, I mean, he would do very well in the arts, for one thing, I would say. But also the 9 is someone who also doesn't like having a boss. Mainly because the 9 is a compilation of all the numbers. It's the highest. It's 1 through 9 in numerology, and the 9 has a combination of 1 through 8 that it packs around with it. So there are so many things that you know and have gathered from past lives that sometimes it's very difficult for you to be in a position of taking orders from someone who, in your opinion, might not know as much as you. And and that would be righteous in many ways, because your 25-7 is somebody who, if you're interested enough, you're going to be one of the best at what you do, just like Picasso. Okay, so also your name, let's see, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So that is a 3. The first name is a 3, but the first name is what your spirit chooses. That's the one name that your spirit chooses for yourself. So the 12, that's sacrificing your own needs for the sake of others, but at the same time, it's also it's the 21, because I didn't add the 9s in there. It's actually the 30. So the 30 is the number of bounty and good fortune, but also having the 3 is another very creative number. So whether it's speaking, whether it's artistic in some way, whether it's even tech or something, like you could be very good at tech too with the 3. People take the 3 over into the sciences. There are more people that use it in the arts than the sciences, but you can be very, very successful in the scientific world as well, or tech world if you want to.
Great. Thank you for that. And so last 2, there's Temesha, so Temeisha.
Okay.
And it's 3/25/78.
Well, I love all these 7s that you have here, because the 7 is also a very esoterically inclined individual too. So let's see, we have 17 and 8 makes 5, is that right? 15, 16. So yeah, so it's a 7. So her year is a 7. She's born on a 7 days. So that's 5. 7 and 7 is 5, 6, 7, 8. So she has an 8 as well. Wow, these are high rollers here. Not meaning high rollers as far as, going to Las Vegas or something. I just mean as far as human beings. Wow.
Insightful people.
Yes, very, very impressive to me, because people with sevens know that, and 11s know that we are not what we are told we are. They just know it coming out of the womb, literally. And then Tamisha has an 8 as her destiny number. And so here again, she's an exemplar. She's the teacher of teachers. She's the judge and the jury. And the reason I say judge and jury is because you have a sixth sense about people. And you should never doubt that, because the 8 gives you the ability to, again, it's coming from your soul. You can go beyond the ego, what the ego is receiving, and connect directly with your soul. And so 9181, let me see what the name works out to here. 7, 9, so 7, 8, and 8 makes, no, it's a 7. So your name is a 7 also, your first name. So gosh, wow, if I had this whole group of people in a bus or something, I mean, this would be an incredible group of people, I must say. So the 7 again it's also psychic. I didn't say that before, but it's highly, highly intuitive, if not psychic, is the point. And the 8 also has that sixth sense. It's usually called a sixth sense with the 8, because the 8 can ferret out things. Like if you go to a garage sale or something, you're going to find the one thing that has a value, because you have fine taste, very fine taste. And you would be wonderful in the sciences. You'd be wonderful, really, literally, in anything that you put your mind to, because 8s don't do it wrong. They can't do it wrong. They just don't have a personality that allows them to do things incorrectly. If they do, they go back and fix it, so nobody knows that it happened. So that's just who they are. That's why these are such stand-up people. My God, I'm very impressed with this.
Well, that's good to know. I was going to say, if they were all on a bus, they'll be the bus to change the world.
That's right. My God.
And so
these are great.
Well, I'm glad, at least based on numbers, I'm happy that people are like that, are tuning in. So at least then I know they and myself are on the journey, and what's called the discovery path.
Yes,
learning.
Absolutely. These people are 100%. There's not one of them that isn't. So
Okay,
I don't know how many I've read here, but you have one more?
The last one I have is Aslan, ASLAN.
Okay.
And that's August 9th, 88.
Okay, this is one born of that generation that they say comes in with sixth and seventh dimension consciousness. So they know more than we brought with us as older people. So they came to save the earth. And she has the 9, which is the number of the universal humanitarian. So she has a mission to do that. She also has the 17 in the first phase of life.
I think Aslan is a guy.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
8, 9, 10, 11. His first name is an 11. So there's that 11 again, and the 9, and then we have 8, and 8 makes a 7. So he's got this, the 11, the 9, and the 7. Oh my God. Anyway, this is just so much fun. I'm going to say that Aslan, oh wow, he's really special too. I mean, he's a private guy. He has his own way of looking at things, but he is a highly evolved individual just from these numbers in the setting that they're in the positions that they're in. Very evolved individual. And he has the 17-8 in the first phase of life, which goes up until he's 29. And the thing is, that's called the number with the star of the Magi over his head. So it means very good fortune, mainly because of what he can do with his mind and what he delivers. It's not so much that somebody's just going to come and give him $1 million or something, but he's got it going. I mean, this is making me laugh because I mean, it's a thrilling laugh,
Right.
because these people are just exceptional, just majorly exceptional. Wow. I'm I'm very happy to have delivered what I know about this. I've been working with numerology for more than 50 years. I'm no young person, but I'm very young at heart and have a lot of energy, and do hope that I get one or two of you to maybe want to know a little bit more about yourselves. But anyway, I've enjoyed this very, very much. And I thank you so much, Adnan, for
Yes, Sally,
having me.
no, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm looking at the calendar right now, and so most likely I would like to extend another invitation October 6th for you to come on and just, hopefully we'll see you, and then we'll do this again, like a quick 10, 15 minutes round during the open lines, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay.
No, that's great.
All
I'll
right,
do
well,
that. I love this. This was really fun.
yeah,
for
me too. I always love hearing about this. My wife does too. So I figured there's plenty of people out there that do as well. So yeah, don't hesitate. Book a session with Sally. And otherwise, you're going to have to wait a whole month to hear what your numbers say. So you can get there a lot quicker before that. So Sally, thanks again. I certainly hope a lot, actually check out what you have to offer service-wise regarding the what did you
Yeah,
call
I
it
have a
again?
lot of books.
There
I
was
have a lot of books
the
on
the life
Amazon.
right the
Yeah, go ahead.
lifespan reading. Is that what it was?
Well,
Because you
I
really
do a
broke,
full,
yeah.
yeah, I do a full life reading. Yes, I go through from childhood clear out to the time that they are now and into the future
Because I know
with
it
my
was
reading.
very, very interesting for me hearing about our 2-month-old, and you were discussing about upcoming challenges when she's 35 and all this other stuff. And just knowing how accurate you were with our lives, and we've been around for a while, it's like I really, want to
Yeah,
see, what's coming up. So,
sure.
all right.
Yeah,
Well,
well, you
Sally,
have a
thank
heads
you.
up there.
Right.
Okay.
Well, thank you
Thank
again.
you very
We'll
much.
talk to you again, and I hope everyone else, enjoyed this. So we'll switch over to open lines. You take care, Sally.
Okay, you too. It was very nice. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sally. And yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody, but so hopefully once a month, next time, I guess October 6th, during that open lines, we'll have Sally back on again. And like I said, I can't say it enough. Description below, check it out. She does sessions, and you can get way more details than what she did in short form for some of you today. So yeah, I hope, Stephen, if you are there and listening, if you can tap to raise your hand again so I know you're actually online. And so then that way I know I can switch to you and we'll get going with open lines. Okay, there you are. So let's switch over here. Okay, Stephen, you are unmuted on my end here. Yeah, I'm glad we didn't get going, because then this way you now have uninterrupted time to speak to me, and so I'm glad
Yeah.
you hung around too. So yeah, you reached out to me. I'm glad you were able to log in today. So I guess start out with a little bit of background, how everything started for you, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Yeah. So I thought about, how far back do I go with this? I guess I'll try to abbreviate my childhood here. Well, first off, and I'm 40 years old now, and I'm an engineer and automation engineer, very logical person, not prone to anything crazy or anything like that. So I'm just saying that up front to let everybody know that I'm completely sane. But anyway, so back to my childhood. When I was a kid, I was a very sensitive kid. I did not sleep very much as a kid. I mean, I could fall asleep if I really tried hard. But for the most part, if I laid down with nobody around me, I was surrounded by, I mean, the only way I could describe it would be spirits. I could see things in the room, mostly foggy figures and things like that. And then when I did fall asleep, a lot of times I would drift out of body, and I would drift out of my feet, go across the floor, and bounce against the wall, and I would take my toes and touch the texture of the wall, and then I would get up out of bed and I'd go and check the texture of the wall to see if it was exactly what I was feeling with my toes, you know. And that's the kind of stuff that went on when I was a kid. You know, I just had all these little strange things happening, and I did have a number of situations where some form of being showed up, and it felt like they would take me somewhere, but I was so afraid of them that I would take the covers and, you know, put them over my eyes. We're talking when I'm 6, 7, 8 years old. And so, oh, I'm getting some kind of feedback here. Can you hear me
No.
okay?
Yeah, no, you should be fine. I'm sorry. That was on my end. I apologize. You're
Okay,
good.
cool.
You're
Yeah,
good. Yeah, no, I keep forgetting I have other things feeding back to you guys. So if I have something on the browser, like my window, it throws it back to you. So I apologize. Please go on.
Oh, no problem. So yeah, like I was saying, occasionally I would have some form of being. You know, I know who these guys are today, but back then I didn't know. And the way it would be for me I would experience what most people would call sleep paralysis, I guess is what they call it today. So more or less, you're out of body and you're paralyzed, and you're not truly paralyzed. That's kind of a misnomer. It just you're paralyzed with fear is really what it is. You're just sort of freaked out and you're out of body and you don't know what to do. So that's what happens. And you know, there would be light in a room that was previously dark, and a lot of times I couldn't see faces very well, but I could see hands, and you know, there would be I'd have the feeling of moving, you know, into the wall in front of me. And I never really, back then, I didn't get much look at where we went or what we did. I would lose consciousness pretty quick. So, you know, other than that, I had a regular childhood. I mean, it sounds strange when I'm telling it like this, but quite honestly, I was just a regular kid that liked to do what every other kid liked to do. So, well, one quick UFO story. When I was young like that, I was, when I was about 7 years old, maybe 6 or 7, somewhere in there, I was out fishing with my dad, and we were at the boat ramp. And on this day, the clouds were maybe 2,000 to 4,000 feet. It was very low hanging clouds. And I looked up into the sky, and there was car headlights in the clouds, as if they were coming down a ramp, and they sort of faded in and faded out. And then I saw the car kind of make a U-turn, and, you know, it just kind of went back and forth in these clouds up here. And so, you know, being a kid, I know, I know I need an adult to say, hey, what's, you know, because I didn't know what was going on. And so I grabbed my dad, and I'm trying to get him to pay attention. And my dad has always paid attention to, you know, if I was to ask him to look at something, I mean, I've never known him to ignore me, but in this moment, he would not look. There was nothing I could do to make him look. It was as if he knew something was going on. And he just acted like I wasn't there. And then this lasted maybe 2 minutes. And the car, you know, like I said, it was going back and forth. It was as if it was driving through a hole in the clouds, and I could see it. And as the car left, my dad turned and looked, and he said, I don't see anything. And, you know, he just kind of blew it off and left, which is, like I say, out of character for my dad. It was like he knew, you know. So, you know, I didn't think about it as being a UFO or anything like this. And by the way, I got a really good look at this car. This car was a 1985 Chevrolet Caprice, and this was in 1985 or thereabouts, somewhere around in there. And so, you know, I don't know how to explain why I saw that, but I mean, I saw it very clearly and for quite a long time, you know. So, you know, I went home and told my mother about it, and she, you know, said, "Oh, well, that's nice, dear. You know, so, you know, what are you going to say? You know, they don't know how to respond to something like this." So that was the first experience that I had that I could say was I suppose, something like a UFO. Why it showed up in the form of a car, I have no idea. But anyway, so moving beyond that, through my teen years and 20s, I mean, I just had it was just a part of my life. I had a continuous stream of metaphysical stuff going on around me, just phenomena of all kinds. And I had multiple nights per month that I couldn't sleep, or that I'd be woken up out of sleep, or that I'd be, I had a lot of out of body experiences, a lot of experiences where I felt like there was some kind of being there, but I couldn't see them. And, this just ramped up more and more and more all the way till the 2010, 2011, 2012 range. It just continued to get stronger and stronger. And quite honestly, I just got sick of it. It's not that I didn't want to understand it, because I did a lot of things to try to understand it. My mother was fairly religious growing up. Just real quick, I went through various forms of talking to religious people about this. Of course, nobody knew anything, or they would, I had some people tell me there was demons or something coming after me, things like that, which I mean, nothing bad ever happened to me. It was just extremely confusing. There was a lot of scary moments, but it was just fear of the unknown. And so, that's one thing I'd like to stress to anybody that hears this message today, is that if you have anything like this going on and it's scaring you, that does not mean it's bad. It just means that you're afraid of what you don't know. And that's what I can tell you. All the way through my teens and 20s, I had a lot of these experiences where, I mean, some of this stuff is quite rattling to your system when you don't know how to explain it, whether you're actually seeing something with your eyes, or whether you're just feeling things, or you're woke up in the middle of the night, or you're flying out of your body going somewhere strange. Whatever it is, some of these things can really terrify people. And so at a certain point, I just got sick of it. And when I say that, I mean that I just said, I'm going to turn and face it. And so there was a night where I just determined, well, the next time they show up, I'm just going to ask them what their deal is. And I knew it had something to do with beings, or some sort of intelligent energy, but I never had really seen much at this point. And so there was a night where I was having a dream, and I was fighting something I couldn't see. This was a lucid dream. I was very well aware that I was dreaming. And so I was fighting something I couldn't see, and I could feel it grabbing my wrist and trying to calm me down, more or less. But I was, like I was trying to get a hold of this thing. And then finally it just clicked. And I said, I've been doing this for years. I can't win, I can't fight them. And so I made the statement, and to this day, I don't know why I said this, but I made the statement, just drop the veil. And for whatever reason, that was the key word that, when I was facing this, or fighting this nothingness out there, all of a sudden, it's like a smoke screen just dropped in front of me, and there was a being there, and he was holding his hand out. And he didn't say anything. He was just holding his hand out like, whenever you're done fighting us, we can go. And so I grabbed his hand, and we headed for the door. When we got to a certain point, we just kind of paused for a second, and I knew, like, oh, I'm fixed to lose consciousness. And that was it. So I lost consciousness in that moment. And so I came back from that experience, though. I was pretty rattled, because I had seen, these beings are real. And that's actually what I said to the guy when I saw him. I said, I knew you guys were real. Or I said something like that. But anyway, from there, I just determined that I was going to learn as much about them as I could. And so these experiences carried on. and I got more and more interaction with them over time. And a lot of people characterize this stuff as being abducted or something like that. I never had the impression that I was abducted. I had the impression that I had maybe signed up for something that was a little bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be, because they never forced me really to do anything. It was mostly an offering. But nevertheless, it was still quite the challenge. And so as I got to know them and realized who they really were, I found out these were my people. These were what people would know as guides. And these were the beings I was with before I came to Earth. And over the years, I had many interactions with them. And it's not that they sat down and explained a whole lot of this. It's just the more time I spent with them, the more I remembered. And that's really, from what I get from them, that's what they expect of me. Is, occasionally I'll ask a question and they sort of look at me like, you know the answer to all of this. And so, I'm making all this very short here, but just to give you the general layout of how this went on. But now, this has gone on for, I don't know, 10 plus years, and I feel very comfortable with them. I have absolutely no fear whatsoever. And, I've learned a lot and I remember a lot, and it's been a wild ride, and living in this world with this information is quite, it's both intriguing and a challenge. And I have a hard time finding anybody that knows anything about it. But
Well,
I
Stephen,
have
do you mind
a
sharing maybe some of these things, if you don't mind going into as much detail as you can, or
sure.
whatever you feel comfortable with, I should say, just to share some of
Yeah.
these things that you were talking about,
Yeah,
that you learned about, and
that's yeah, that's what I was going to ask, is what exactly do you want to know? So, here's one thing that, that we're on UFO Hub here. Here's a situation I think you'll enjoy. So, in the beginning of this, I had the overwhelming feeling to go out and sit under the stars at night. This was in um, I don't remember the year exactly this started, but it might have been 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. But so I started to go outside, and I would sit under the stars at night. And in the first month or two, um, I saw quite a few things that were anomalous. And if nobody's ever done this, if you haven't sat outside under the stars, for one, there's satellites, there are planes, there are meteors and such. And once you get an idea for what all these things look like and the times that they're supposed to be there and whatnot, you can really get a beat on what's supposed to be in the sky. And then if you sit there, for any length of time, I would say an hour to 3 hours, the chances of you seeing something I would call anomalous in the sky are pretty high. I mean, in the first few months that I did this, I saw all kinds of things that were, now a lot of them were very high altitude. Some of them I know were outside the atmosphere, because there was one time I was on the phone with a guy that saw something in the atmosphere. He was 100 miles from me, and he saw it in the same location of the sky that I saw it, which, if you just do the quick math, you can figure out whatever we saw was well above the atmosphere. So anyway, there is that kind of stuff going on up there. I don't know what that is necessarily, but it's definitely nothing that anybody can easily explain. That's for sure. So, but that's not the interesting part. The interesting part is that as I did this for a while, I started to see very close range ships in the skies, and there was a number of them that it happened in multiple different ways. But one of the first ones, I lived in a neighborhood that was relatively spread out, and we're looking over the horizon, and a very, very bright, something the size of, if you saw a full moon directly overhead, this would be half the size of a full moon, and the brightness, or brighter than a full moon. This object that lit up in the sky. It slowly faded out into your, your standard looking UFO ship, and then it just fell below the horizon. And this thing was maybe a half a mile from me. This was the very first time. It absolutely terrified me because I could really sense that was no accident. The fact that we happened to be out there watching for this, and this showed up one day right in our field of view, the chances.
And the attention is focused back on you.
Yes. And I had a girlfriend at the time, and that was she's still a good friend of mine, but she saw this too. And we at the time we dubbed him the big guy. And it was because of these big, bright experiences. There are these big, bright, balls of light in the sky that we would see. This went on in the beginning we would see it once or twice a night, sometimes as many as 3 times a night in different forms, almost every night for, quite a while there. And then one thing I like to spend a lot of time on the lake at night. I like to fish. I actually was a professional fisherman for a little while. So I spent a lot of time at night on lakes, which are rural areas and places you can see very far away. And one of these experiences was very, very interesting. And I can't say whose ship this was, but whatever it was, I never saw anything like it before or since. But so I was in you could say the upper northern corner of this lake, and about 400 yards away there was multiple red lights in the where I'm at is tall pine trees everywhere, 50-60 foot pine trees. So there was a rural area where there was a whole bunch of red lights in the pine trees, and I knew the lake very well, and I knew that there shouldn't really be any lights over there. And I thought, well, maybe they built a new house over there. But even if they did, why did they put all these red lights all over it? I didn't think anything esoteric, and there was another boat in that area that was much closer to me. I'd say they were 75 yards from these lights. I was about 400 yards, about a quarter mile. So all of a sudden these red lights come up out of the trees, and it is a very plain as day flashing, I don't know if it was a disc or a tic tac, but it was a very, very large ship. 60, 80 foot, maybe even 100 foot. I don't know. It was huge. It came up out of the trees, and it went the opposite direction of me, and it disappeared behind the horizon. So this is in the very beginning. At this point, I had only seen just a few things at a distance. And when I saw that was pretty close range. It absolutely terrified me. I didn't know what to think about it. Even though I was having these experiences, I didn't put them together. I just, saw this thing and said, oh my gosh, I'm out of here. So I went and put my boat on the trailer, and I left. And I was like burning rubber out of the parking lot. I've had enough of this. And I made it like 2 miles down the road, and I thought, oh my gosh, there was another boat right there where it happened. So I drove back to the boat ramp, and I had intention of putting my boat back in the water and finding these people. I was going to go out and look for them, but they were at the boat ramp when I got there. It was an older man and his wife. And this guy he seemed very aggravated. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He, was clearly disturbed. And his wife at the same time was sitting in the front of the boat, and she seemed happy as a clam. She was just as calm and peaceful as ever, which was the polar opposite of him. And so I walked out on the dock where they were and asked them, I said, hey, were you guys the boat that was right over here? And they said, yeah, that was us. And I said, did you see there were some lights that came up out of the trees? And the guy was very aggravated. I didn't want to push him, but I wanted to know. And he said, yes, we saw it, and we don't want to talk about it. And so I said, okay, all right, well, fair enough. Or he said, I don't know what it is, and I don't want to talk about it. That's what he said. I said, okay. So I said, well, okay, you guys have a good night. And his wife was still just with a smile on her face. She never, broke character. So I guess she was okay with it. But anyway, I got my vehicle and left. But that was a second confirmation of another person that saw that event. And I don't know if anybody
Right.
else saw it or not, but these people are real. And I mean, what I'm talking about, people that absolutely could hear me talking about this. If they do, then feel free to
Right.
find me. But
Well, Stephen, I know it's you said because of the name UFO Hub, you can, if you've watched UFO Hub at any given time, we go
yeah,
into a lot of different subjects. So of course, I'll be remiss to not
sure,
ask you
sure.
about the juicy metaphysical aspects of the contact, and the things that you personally
Abs-
learned, maybe that wasn't known to you before. So if you don't mind going a little bit into that.
Sure, yeah, and I just wanted to say the reason I wanted to mention the UFO stuff is to me that's sort of a sideshow, but it is sort of a precursor to the information that I learned,
Mm,
and you know, so I could. It's very hard to tell the story of why I know some of these things, and that's one reason why I've been reluctant to talk about very much of this because if you just come off with here's some crazy information without an explanation, it doesn't set well with everybody. So I'll do my
Well, you
best
don't
here,
have
but
to worry
this
about that on this channel, so just let loose. It's like
yeah,
we can't always draw all the connections. I mean, most of the time we try, but you're safe here. You don't have to draw those conclusions.
right. Well, that's the engineer in me. I'm sorry, I'm used to drawing a map of exactly how everything works. So
Sure.
but yeah, I mean, but more or less, the people I hear a lot of stories, and I'm sure I know you have as well. You hear these stories, and you get these kind of like nuts and bolts UFO guys, and then there's the spiritual guys over here, and then you've got people talking about beings coming from other places, and there's kind it's very fragmented. But what I want everybody to understand is that these beings, the first question everybody asks is, who are they? And the it's easier to understand than you might think. I mean, all of the higher beings, the beings that are on a higher spiritual plane, they can all talk, and they can communicate with what I consider the universal language, which is basically telepathy, thought transfer, and whatnot. But there is also like a universal translator where a being could talk to you and you would hear English. You potentially would hear English. Now, it might not be perfect English, but you could actually hear, something in your native language if you couldn't pick up on the telepathy they were sending your way. But anyway, I'm just saying they have ways of communicating with each other, and they communicate with each other long distance without technology. It's just built into their system. And so all of the higher beings that exist within, I don't know the distance, but I would say at least our local star system and, universal area. You hear about like the Pleiades and Arcturus and all this stuff. Yes, all of those places, but also places that you've never heard of, things that you don't, planets and uh, ships and all kinds of things that nobody's ever heard of. There's lots and lots of beings, and a lot of that federation or whatever you want to call it. I've heard people call it the federation. That is about right. That this group of beings is who is more or less responsible for Earth on a higher level. They don't live on our plane. They live on a higher level. That's basically what we would consider the non-physical world, and that's where most of the life in the universe is. Now, one thing that people probably don't know is that that plane is also where you are when you're not here. So to come to Earth would be, they consider coming to Earth like a step down, as if you're in a sense like you're dying, like you're going into this dark place where you have this body that's quite a filter, and keeps you from being able to see what's really there in front of you. And only if you get your system really straightened out can you really see much beyond that? Or if you use psychedelics, or if you, have some kind of metaphysical experience, there's a handful of things that'll get you to see beyond uh, what you can normally see. But for the most part, we all have this body, which is basically a filter. So like I say, from their perspective, to come here is like to die, you know, and you're going into this, cosmic dark night of the soul, more or less, which is what this experience is, to refine your being. And so while you're here, if you learn how to reach that realm, how to let me explain something right quick before I go any further. This place outside of here is nothing but a combination of it's basically a celebration, and it's nothing but it's kindness and caring and love and a celebration. And they see no other reason, the beings that live here, they see no other reason to be any different, you know. And they wouldn't even consider all of the trouble that you see on this planet. They wouldn't even consider it. There's no sense in it. It just seems that it's just, it would be, why would you drag yourself down? That's kind of how they see it. Now, the reason is because we have these heavy filters here. So, anyway, I lost my train of thought a little bit there, but more or less, that's what's going on there.
You were
And we
basically
come
going
here
into
and-
like they wouldn't
Mhm.
consider, I guess I would assume, living the way we live or even being as violent as we are.
Well, it's not it. So it's not that it's not acceptable to be as we are, because it's understandable being on this plane. Oh, I know what I was going to say. If you can break through the realm that you're in here and see beyond, and reach into that feeling of celebration and love and appreciation and all the things that they live, it almost sounds cheesy when we say it here on earth, because it just sounds like this fairy tale land, but quite honestly, that's what's beyond us. If you could reach into that, you have really refined your being. You have really refined yourself. And that's what this is. It's kind of like it. I mean, that's what the earth experience is. It's forcing you to find that. Everybody here has a problem, and they're all trying to get through those problems to find that world. And you all, every last one of you, have a group of beings, whatever you want to call it, and I've heard it called an entourage. You've got guides, you've got some people call them angels or whatnot, whatever. Most of what those are your past incarnations, which every time you have an incarnation somewhere, there's an instance of your being that then lives on the other side there, and can help you out in some form or another. There's more. For most people, there's more incarnations than they will ever know on this planet. Usually just a handful of them will interact with you while you're here on planet Earth. And
Are you
so,
talking about incarnations of yourself interacting with yourself?
yes, sir. That's,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So
wanna
any of your
clarify.
past so what you would call guides are your past incarnations in most cases. I don't think that probably doesn't cover every scenario, but for the most part, the beings that, so one of the questions when you have some kind of contact, one of the questions that comes up is, why do these beings want anything to do with me, or why do they care about me, or whatever? And that's because they are you. So, and if they directly aren't you, they are with a group that is you. So you know what I mean? You have an enormous faction of beings on the other side. Now, I don't think in everybody's case that they're necessarily tied to ETs and have a huge galactic Akash and all that stuff. Maybe not everybody has the same lineage that maybe I have, or that probably many of your listeners have. But nevertheless, we all have some form of lineage that is more or less different instances of yourself. And that's why they care, and that's why they come and rattle you in the middle of the night, or whatever it is that they might have done to you. Just about everybody in this sphere has some situation that they can point at and say, well, this was my guides or whatever else. And I'm just explaining that those guides are you. That's just another piece of you. And so,
Right. Well, can you go a little bit more into that? I mean, I talk about that often, but I don't want to interject too much of, what I understood. I was hoping you could maybe go into that from your perspective, as much detail as you can, because I'm talking about how did you feel first recognizing that oh, this is another version of myself? And I don't know if you looked past that part, whether or not there was some kind of I'm not saying that has to be the case for you as well, but I remember I felt despair when I realized that it was just me here, and I'm talking to these different versions of myself. It was almost like there is no one else outside of me. So it felt sad that there wasn't someone else who I could tell something or tell an experience. It's just basically, the ultimate, version of being a schizophrenic, I guess.
wow, that's interesting. I've never seen it that way. I was actually, um, I was relatively happy that I knew that they were. So although I do know that yes, it is me, but at the same time, uh, I could tell they had distinct personalities. They had distinct experiences. They were, uh, they account for every. I'm not saying that I'm every being in the universe necessarily, but instances of beings like myself account for all the beings that I see around. And so I realized, like, wow, I'm much larger than I thought I was, and I have a lot more to pull from. I have a lot more information to pull from, and that's what you get out of these things. If you can really get the information out of these situations, is it's not that some being is going to come tell you about their life, how they lived on a farm or something like that. That's not it. It's the internal energies that they developed and that they picked up in their life. Just being with them for a moment or two, you can absorb this into your situation here, and if it applies to you, you can integrate that into who you are every day. And so I feel like I have almost took on a number of these other incarnations, and I have some beings I wish I could take on. I wish I could be like them because they're just amazing. But I can't even really claim they're me, but I know they're somewhere in my lineage. So I have one main guide that is a lady. She's, they will come to you in different forms very often. But this lady, if you've ever heard people say that they met a lady named Myra, Myra is a title. Myra is not a name. Myra is like a title for like head lady. I don't know, but so you'll hear a lot of people say they met Myra, and so one day it kicked in that, like, oh, this is just like a generalized title. But anyway, so this would be my version of Myra, and so she's got blonde, spiky hair typically, and she just looks really, really tough. She looks like she's got the eye of the tiger, man. But she just, anytime I'm around her, she just has this, whether she actually says something to me or looks at me, her whole demeanor is like, better, or what you need, or it's just, and I can feel it so strongly. And so after being around that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I have all the answers. I know I do. I don't necessarily know that in every waking moment, but I know after being around these kind of experiences, I'm like, I can't deny it. There's no,
Is it a matter of
like
kind of being in their vibration that kind of kicks you up a notch where you go, oh, okay, I get it. But then when they're gone, you kind of sift back to your old self and you go, oh, I used to remember this, but now it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever been, if anybody to relate this to like what you're saying, if you've ever been in any, you know, high performance sport or anything like that, where the level of you know, performance is higher, you know, you kind of naturally rise to the occasion. Like when you're around a lot of people that are really good at something, you naturally kind of go the way that they go. And that's what I'm saying is like when I'm with them, I very quickly just sort of morph into their mindset. And that mindset is very much like everything is fine. You have it under control. Matter of fact, you're controlling it all. You know, it just, it's very, very powerful. And then, like you say, to come back here, you're back in the human filters again. And, you know, you're going back through the, oh man, I feel small and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, after these many years, this many years of doing this, I mean, I don't fall back as far as I used to. You know, I've become a whole lot more stable, but I'm just being human about it when I say that, you know, yes, I've, you know, had these moments and I know what it's like to go up and down and in and out, you know, where you're real high one moment and then you're back down to the small little human again and all that. So, but these days I feel a lot more stable. And I think that's what it does is that over the years it stabilizes you and gets you
Right.
to a place to where you understand.
Well, when you basically then shift these, you know, these frequencies and you're in their presence, what kind of things you basically conveyed about yourself then, you know, or in general? Can
Mm.
you maybe go down a list of a few?
Yeah, well, there's a lot, but
So one obviously
a
is
lot of
that
it is
they're all, you know, they're all being, that's all incarnations of yourself. And then like
mhm.
what other things kind of became apparent to you?
There's been a number, I mean, a number of things. I'm trying to think of the best thing that would make sense for this deal here. So, well, one is Earth is very much a realm. It's not so much I mean, yes, it is a 3D planet and it is real. You hear people say it's like a simulation or whatever. Well, simulation or not, I mean, it is full of consciousness and experience, and therefore it is real in that sense. I mean, yes, it is pretty much a video game. And it is synthetic. It is, well, synthetic to means man-made, but you know what I mean. It is created. It is this realm. I don't know how it works, but this was set here somehow by beings much higher than us, or maybe it's us when we're not here. They this was here. This was put here for the purpose of the school of Earth, and they do refer to Earth as a school, but it's not a school. It doesn't directly relate to the, you know, schools like we have here. This is like, it's not so much a personal test as it is a test of the system, I guess you would say, if that makes sense. It's in other words, it's not, a lot of people take this very personally. They take the whole thing very personally, but it's not so much. Uh, that's another thing is that you're more or less on a stage show, and everybody is an actor in a show. It's interesting. We're in a show, and then we come here and we create shows, and you know, like we're on a show now, and you know, we create
Show
more
within a show
simulations. Like
within a show.
yeah, we create video games and all this stuff, and it's because that's what's in us is to do these kind of things. You know, yeah, it's very interesting that is, you know, one way to put it is if you had the ability to create any situation you wanted to, you might create all of the euphoria you could possibly imagine. But over time, you would eventually say, well, let's create something that's not euphoric. Let's create something that's a little bit difficult, but you can't actually be hurt. You just think you can, you know? And so, you know, hence Earth. That's basically it. And so, you know, you really can't be hurt here, but there are incredible dramas that play out here, and there is positive effects on you energetically. You get, when you leave Earth, you get something that is, the only way I've ever heard it described is you get your colors. Colors is not right. It's not technically right, but you get, it's like you get your stripes. You get some addition to your being that is something that any being in the universe can recognize. If you've played this particular game, they know that you've done it, and it's like a badge of honor in a sense to have done this kind of stuff. So another thing, feel free to jump in if you want to ask a question, but um, if you know Dolores Cannon's work, I mean, what I have found is that her talking about the volunteers and whatnot, that is dead on. They didn't put it to me exactly in the form of Dolores Cannon's, the way that Dolores Cannon got it, but it was pretty close. She speaks of three, for those that don't know, she speaks of 3 waves of volunteers that started to come in about 100 years ago. And these are beings that have experience from outside of Earth, that have been in other star systems and whatnot. Basically, beings that have energies in their system that they can add to Earth to then raise its vibration, to then raise Earth's general frequency. Which, once again, like, frequency is not the best word, or well, it may be the best word we have, but that's not quite right either. Frequency would imply something that goes in a circle and it spins, but nevertheless, it is the best word we have. I mean, yes, Earth is rising in frequency. It's becoming lighter, probably a good way to say it, and it's becoming closer to the world that we came from. Like, the distance there's not a good word for this, but we're closer to the world that we came from than we used to be. If you go back like 50 or 100 years, when you came to Earth from the other side, you had no remembrance. You had nothing. You were very much on an island, and you were very fortunate if you had any memory at all of the other side. Nowadays, children are being born every day where they remember their past lives, and they remember all kinds of things. We've got a whole group of listeners here that I'm sure have had, various situations in their life, so that point to there being more than what you can see. But yes, Dolores Cannon's situation is basically accurate, and they called me a wanderer, which they have a couple of times pointed to the Law of One material, which they never said the Law of One material, but they used terminology from it, and that's information that I really resonate with, that I can understand very well, and it does seem to match up with a lot of what they have said. But yeah, it's not. I don't know how many people out there have had direct experiences with realizing that there really is a group of volunteers that are a little bit different than everybody else, but it's absolutely true. So I can talk all day about the differences there, but whatever feel free to ask a question.
Right. Yes, Stephen, give me one quick second. I just want to address the audience real quick. So for some of you who just now tuned in, it's basically open lines where you can join Telegram and connect with me directly and share your story. Now, of course, Stephen was more than kind to do so. If there's some of you out there that would like to do the same thing, simply log in, tap the little button that looks like a raised hand, and then I know that you also would like to speak. Otherwise, I'm just going to give Stephen the floor and have him share all the experiences and whatever other information he has. Sometime when there's more people, we'll try to switch up more. But for right now, I'm more than happy to talk to Stephen. So anyway, just wanted to interject that real quick for those who are just tuning in now. So Stephen, wanted to ask about, was there any kind of well, actually, 2 questions, and I hope you can keep them track. If not, I'll do that for you. So basically, then some are physical in the sense that they would have things like ships, or that we could perceive as ships, but generally that they're more spiritual or esoteric, I should say, and then so that they're not necessarily confined to a body, or are some of them that are kind of living it out like we are, but still very much have a structure like a body and a plane, or a ship in this case, and a planet, and a place where they are from.
Hmm. Yeah. I can explain that, and
Sure.
that's a good question. That's why I wanted to explain the UFO situation there, because so what these UFOs are in most cases, this doesn't explain every single situation, but it does explain the vast majority of what people see. People see basically two things when they see a UFO. One is just a ball of energy, which is uh, probably not a ship. It's probably something. I mean, it could be as strange as it sounds. It could be a singular being literally flying through the sky. But that is what it is. It could be a ball of energy, or something that's not quite manifest in this realm, I guess is the way to say this. And in that case, that wouldn't be a nuts and bolts UFO, but this would be something that looked like a plasma ball or whatever. And I know people do see these from time to time. Or you might see orbs, or I have this thing that hangs around my house I call the Wisp, and it's just this white thing, this white ball of light that flies around my house. I don't know what it's doing, but that is not a ship. That is some kind of thing that is not fully manifest in this world. So the things that are nuts and bolts flying UFOs, those are this is I hope I can explain this well. Those are more or less portals, and they're like a 3D wrapper with a multi-dimensional core. So if you hear people talk, especially Sherry Wild has said this. If you walk into these ships, you'll walk into a 30-foot UFO, and then there's hallways and hallways, it's like 100-yard long hallways,
Right.
or the ship seems much larger. And that's because the outer shell of the ship is just it's just a shell in 3D. It's like, wish I could explain how they see us. I mean, they can flip through our time like the pages of a book. And they can. It is technology that does it. Yes, no doubt about it. But they have complete understanding of how our world works, and they can just jump into any point in space and time. That's why people can walk out. For the people that have these experiences, a lot of them will say things like, "Well, I can just walk out on the porch and they're right there." Well, that's because they can jump into any point in your time very, very easily. And they can go anywhere in the 3D universe, especially very quickly, because they can jump into nonlinear space. That's a good way to say it. And so, yeah, it's not a matter of physical or non-physical. They can lower their vibration to appear physical here, where you can actually see them, but they are all, for the most part, some form of what I guess you could call it spiritual. In other words, they all live on a higher plane. Now, there have been in the past some reports of 3D type beings that were not so nice. Now, when I say the past, I mean like 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s, but you don't hear about them anymore, and I really don't think they're around anymore. You hear
Can you
people
define it a little bit when you say beings are not so nice?
Yeah, well, I mean, the Law of One describes them as the beings from Orion, and I don't know if that perfectly wraps up who they are, but if you go back to the early days of the abduction phenomena, and you listen to those stories, those people they were definitely having things happen physically, and they were definitely terrifying, and they didn't seem to be the types of people that they were picking up didn't come out of it with a spiritual awareness. Matter of fact, it seemed like they were picking up the type of people that had no idea what was going on. Not to pick on anybody or anything, but you know, these weren't the guides of the people that they were messing with. Now, I don't know why that went on back then. But like I say, I don't know of a case of it anytime recently. Now, I know somebody could probably jump up and say, oh, no, I know of something. But what I mean to say is it used to be pretty regular to see these kinds of things. And today, most of the time, it's mistaken identity. If you really get down to talking to the people that think they've had a negative experience, the vast majority of them are just afraid of the experiences that they've had. So, but yeah, who they are exactly, I'm not totally sure. I've never tangled with them myself. My guys mentioned a little something about it one time, and it was in the beginning because I was afraid of who was what, and so I was asking them, was there bad guys out there? And they basically said like, yeah, but don't worry about them. They're not an issue. So, that was the extent of negative experience that I'm aware of out there. But yeah,
So
I think those beings were 3D.
Right.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask. So, is the purpose of them contacting you? I mean, obviously, it's a personal journey, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be public. But you obviously called in to or wanted to call in. So, what was there an aspect that they said, maybe share it with others?
I totally expected them to say something about today, but I didn't hear anything directly, and I'm just being completely honest about that. I was kind of hoping I could tell you that, but they didn't say anything directly. Now they probably will pretty soon, but nevertheless, didn't say anything about sharing anything directly. But I'll tell you what, well, there was a time when they told me not to talk, and I know why now, because at the time I was just too naive about it. And they didn't stop me at all this time. If they didn't want me to talk, they would have let me know. There's no question, because I almost did this one time. It was like 2014 or something. And they just flat said, don't do it. So,
Well, I think your people know my people, so it's good.
yeah. Matter of fact, they made the comment. I'll tell you what they said. They made the comment. They said, you really need to talk to people that understand. And the person I was talking to, although they are known in the UFO community, I won't mention their name, but they let me know that this person doesn't understand. And so they said, if you're going to have these conversations, have them with people that can have the conversation. So,
well, that's a lot of times the case too. I'm sorry to interject, Stephen. It's about I don't know why, and I think the same fear that you had when they initially kept, when you're fighting in the dark, and then finally you got sick and tired of it, or at least just tired of it. I don't want to put words in in your mouth, but where basically then you're facing finally what it is that's kind of around you and hovering and in a sense bothering you, and so that's something that for me developed afterwards, beyond the nuts and bolts, right? And so there's still so many nuts and bolts researchers that we just can't touch the subject with them in this way, because they I don't know what it is, if they have like a belief that maybe deep down that is a direction they want to go, but then they got stuck on this, papers, file papers, get papers, what government knows, and all this other stuff, just sticking to that level, to where instead of flowing with it, because, eventually, if you're truly a researcher, like I was in the beginning, you expand your mind. You're like, well, hold on. What are these abductees about? If we have lights, what are they saying? And then you listen to them. And then you have others that say, well, we channel some of these people. And you go, oh, what do they have to say? And then the channels say, hey, well, you can try this, it'll work for you. And then you go that direction. You see what I mean? Basically, as a truly open-minded person, a researcher, that's how I thought you're supposed to go. That's what got me to where I am today. But when it comes to, those well-known researchers, again, they serve a purpose for the majority of the people, out there that are in that very beginning stages of that, but eventually it's going to lead, I believe, down this route that what we are talking about today, where you have to include channeling, you have to include these extraordinary supernatural experiences, to where it has a lot to do with cross boundaries, where all of a sudden ghosts and aliens, they're not really that different from each other, that it's all about these different frequencies, right? And then you just keep going and going down this path to where it leads you to that experience where you just get this, oh, okay, I understand. All right, well, I'll just keep playing this game until something else comes up, you know. And at least I don't know if you agree with with what I was just saying, but what do you think in general?
Yeah, I agree completely with that, and it gets out of hand very, very quickly if you leave the world of the nuts and bolts and engineering and technology, which is something that we can sit around and discuss, that sort of thing, to a certain extent, and we can stay within the bounds of science, or maybe reach the fringes of science or whatever. But at a certain point, this is so far out there that it's going to leave the boundaries. And what actually this is my theory on why they don't do it, and I'll tell you why. Because it gets very out of hand very quickly. Because the minute that you turn this on, if you're one that has played with this, whoever's out there listening, you may find that you start off seeing what you think is a nuts and bolts UFO or something like that, and then the next thing you know, you hear footsteps in your house,
Right.
and
Crossing, yeah.
you're like, wait a minute, what is that? And then or then you may hear a rattle or something, or I mean, I've never had any like knives fly off the shelf and or anything like that, but
Right.
that's
Well,
what
it's
happens
yeah.
is,
The main part is that's the point. It's like it's a different expression of the same thing, and that's the important part to I think, to remember that, to keep that in mind, because things like that do have. I mean, if I may just real quickly share, it was like I had these a lot of times. I just noticed when I have these weird dreams that have a lot to do with just flying ships and aliens and all this other stuff. It's like I stop trying to figure it out immediately. If I need more confirmation and to remember more, I will get it later. But so this was one of those nights, right? And it was like 3 a.m. and I got up. Everyone kind of understands this part. Most people know their house well. So in the pitch black, I'm maneuvering through by the bed, going through the door and all this other stuff. I just know where, where things are in the house. So anyway, so I closed the door, went to the bathroom. I basically wanted to get back out, and the light is on. Right. And I was about to say to my wife, like, why'd you turn the light on? And she's sleeping with our child in bed, and she's dead fast asleep. Right. And never mind that, too. It wasn't our main light. It was the light that you had to get behind the baby crib and switch on and slide up to turn the light on. Right? It's not something that can be bumped by accident or something like that. You have to deliberately reach for it and do this specifically to turn the light on to the extent that it was, and it was, it was slid on to full, and it's things like that where you just go, huh, because I had initially said something, so she was asleep, and then after I said it, she kind of got up, and then she looked at me. She's like, "Why'd you turn the light on?" I'm like, "I thought you turned the light on," And so it's things like that happen, And then again, like we do with a lot of things, like, "All right, I love you, good night," and turn the light off and go to bed, because there's no point of driving yourself nuts trying to figure out how this happened, how that had happened. And that light is there and been there for years. There's no short circuiting, no issues with electric or anything like that. It was the one and only time that an occurrence like that with that particular light happened. It wasn't something that it flickers often or something like that. It was literally that instant after I had those dreams, which then confirms to me, yeah, something was going on. You'll learn more about this later. And do you find that to be the case as well, Stephen?
yes, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of as you go through this, there's a lot of unanswered questions and strange phenomena that you don't necessarily get all the answers right away. And sometimes, I'll share an experience with you real quick that there was a night that this sort of plays into what you're saying, but it's a little more esoteric. There was a night that I had the guys had showed up, and I'd gone with them, and we ended up on, I assume we were on a ship. I don't know. I didn't actually see a ship, but we were in an area that I've been in many times, and there were two beings there, two guys, human-looking guys. They looked like Santa Claus. One of them had a red-looking beard. The other one had a gray-looking beard, but they looked identical. And they were walking in the exact same manner, side by side, and they walked right in front of me and carried on past me. And I just kind of, turned and looked at them. And then the next thing I knew, I was back. I had, it's like I left that experience. And like you say, you have these, whether it be a dream or out of body or whatever it is, lucid dream, any kind of mental phenomena. I came back and I said, what in the world is that? How do I, what do I do with that? And I have a lot of this kind of stuff. Well, it was like 3 weeks later, it hit me. That was, believe it or not, that was an older version of somebody talking to a younger version of the same, this was the same person talking to two different versions of the same person. If that makes sense. I'm
Yeah.
sorry if
Yeah,
I'm
it does.
jumbling that up. Yeah. So it was an older guy talking to a younger version of himself, and they were walking side by side, and it just hit me that, what they were showing me was, this is what this realm is. This is the kind of stuff that goes on up here.
Hmm.
That's why they put that in front of me. And, it was just, rather than to tell me, hey, here's what's going on, they just gave me this strange experience. So in the same way that, whether you have a light switch, I don't know if I've ever had an actual light switch turn on, but I've had, gosh, I can't count the number of, things that have happened like that. And a lot of times it'll happen in front of somebody, and it makes you wonder, what exactly are they doing? But there is some meaning behind every bit of it. You may not always find it.
Right.
But if nothing else, it has an effect on you that you may not ever consciously realize, but it has an
Right.
effect on you that absolutely does something. Mm-hmm.
That's the maddening part, I find, is that there's always a meaning, and sometimes you're not supposed to know at that time. Sometimes you'll find out later, and I think some of them I won't find out until I'm done with this planet altogether, And that's the part that if you're not going easy on yourself, that you can drive yourself nuts, constantly trying to find that answer. It's like, I got to know it. I have to know it. What did that mean? Where's the book? Where's the video? And I got to watch this. I got to learn this, talk to people, you can drive yourself nuts very easily. But Stephen, do you mind, if I maybe take some questions from people that have been listening that might have some questions for you, if you're okay with that?
Yeah, let's do it. Absolutely.
Okay, so if you have some questions for Stephen, please make sure you put the 3 stars. I keep confusing 3 stars before your question, and so then I'll ask it for you. If you are on Telegram, simply tap the little, raised hand fella. That means that you're interested to speak, and you can just ask a question of Stephen directly. So whichever way you do it, I guess please start now. But I figured. I wanted to ask one more question, and maybe until then more questions will coming from you guys. So Stephen, one particular, I think I mentioned it before. I don't know, maybe I need to just sit back, remember more of what I was going through, and then tell more of it. I just immediately, the ones that were more profound, I always remember them a lot more easier. Not that everything that I didn't experience wasn't profound, but so for example, one instant during one of my journeys was I found myself in this room, right? And it would look like a Japanese room generally. And like the sliding doors and very hardwood floor, clean, very very pretty. Well, anyway, there was this white wall, and there was a spider in very close to me, within like swatting range, and I saw it, and my first reaction was to hit it, right? And I was about to do that, and I could literally sense and feel the spider and understand it as myself from a different perspective, right? And that it's, that if I were to kill it now, that the one perspective of myself that, came into being, I would be ending its experience, right? That was the basically all of that got downloaded within that instant, and I immediately kind of took my hand back, and I didn't, I was like, I didn't want to, right? And so something interesting then, it became very profound, very clear to me, that from that moment on, I even like developed this whole new like towel technique, like either towel or paper towel technique, to pick up spiders and bees and whatever was in the house, to where basically I have him, have laid gently over them, but then I close it up to where they go into that open cavity of that paper, and I take them outside and then let them out, And so that was the one of the major effects it had on me, because then I could, I felt it, I knew it, I understood it, and it was way more profound than just being told. Did you ever have any experiences like that really kind of affected your life in that way?
Wow, that's interesting. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I want to comment on those kind of experiences. So I have found that there are a number of types of experiences, and some of them are like a simulation. Like you say, you're on a journey, but it is a simulation, and it is there to show you something. It sounds like that might have been what you were in there, where you see something like a
Yeah.
spider, and all of a sudden there's a message there, and it's like the whole thing was set up to show you some particular deal. And I've had a number of these. I could just go on forever about them, but some of them were
Share one if you
absolutely
don't mind.
absurd. Yeah, yeah, sure. So let me finish what I'm saying, then I'll share one real quick. So there's another layer of experience behind that is like, there's times where you can be experiencing the other side, where you're like on a ship or something, you're dealing with beings. That situation is just like being on Earth. You're just looking at the other side, and you're dealing with people there, and it's not metaphoric. In other words, like somebody comes up and they tell you they're from Vega or something, like they literally mean they're from Vega. There's not like a layer of metaphor in there. So but then there's situations where it's like they've been projected to you to show you these things. And so that I separate the two, is the only thing I wanted to say there. So one of these situations they've put me through to show me. Tell you a couple of them right quick. One was, like I say, some of these can be absolutely absurd. Some of them are very much exactly what you'd read in a book or something, But this one, I'm flying down this extremely colorful tunnel, and I'm going extremely fast on my back. And I've been in these situations many times, so I wasn't afraid, but I definitely felt the offering to be afraid, because it felt, like you're falling down this hole and whatever. And I got to the very bottom of it, and this guy jumps out of the bottom of this tunnel. Like I said, I'm still going very fast, and he jumps out, and he's got like a wolf mask on, and he's like, rah or whatever. And I jumped up, and I think I high-fived him or something. And I was just like, what in the world is, like, what is this? And the guy goes, hey, right on. He goes, you're the only one today that hadn't been terrified. And he said, follow me. And I said, okay. And I followed him, and he handed me a plate of fried chicken. And the metaphor was winter chicken dinner.
Oh, got
It was
it.
like, it was ridiculous, right? Like that's what I'm saying. I'm explaining this because I know somebody has to have some of these ridiculous things like this. This almost felt like some kids, like some young guys that had been put up to putting, whoever was awake to it, putting them through these situations. And basically what they told me was that everybody they had put this through was terrified, and that the fact that I wasn't scared, they were like, all right, you win, And so I don't know. I didn't
That's
get
funny.
scared because I've been scared a million times. But anyway, that was a wild one, but they're not they're not all that way. Uh, Another one I had. This was more serious, and but it was interesting. I was wanting to move. I had this idea that I was going to move to just a more awake place. For people that don't know, I live in East Texas, and it's not the most awake place you've ever seen. I actually love it here. I live in Tall Pines. It's beautiful and everything, but nevertheless, everybody gets wary of the world once in a while, where you just have too many experiences where people are just, difficult or whatever. And that's what I was going through. And so I was like, that's it. I'm going somewhere like, Shasta or somewhere like that. I didn't know where I wanted to go, but I was like, I'm going to go find somewhere where people are weird as I am. so I decided I'm going to do this. And that night I had this experience, and I'm flying over this city that is perfectly automated. And it was like trains and planes and all this, everything was moving perfectly. It was like the timing of everything was just right. And being an automation engineer, I really appreciated that. So, I was like, golly, it looked so real. And I came down off of this as I was flying over the city. I came down and I was in this cul-de-sac like area. And this guy said, we don't need much help with this city. He said, we need help with this place. And he pointed to this place behind this fence. And he basically said, come look at this. And he flagged me over there. And I walked over and I looked behind the fence. And it was a bunch of people carrying 50-pound, what looked like sacks of flour or grain or something. And they were all blind, and they were bumping into each other. And they were all just kind of like they weren't being hateful to each other, but they were running into each other, and they were carrying big, heavy loads and all this stuff. And it was very dark and drab and everything. But the message was, in that situation, was like, you're in this place for a reason. Don't go somewhere where everything's working perfectly and just get in there where it's all nice and comfortable. Stay out here where it's, there's nobody like you where you are. That's on purpose. So,
Right.
yeah.
That reminds me of just something I want to say real quick before I go over one of some of the questions here. It was I forgot who I heard this from. It wasn't my experience, but it was somebody who was just now exploring with out-of-body experiences and their guides, and how generally when they had an out-of-body experience, they kind of had this, I guess, a plan or something to kind of go over with their guides and to whatever, just learn certain things. But then as things progressed, they started taking more liberty, and were more free. Like they would get out of body and then fly around and just have a good time, and they kept doing that, right? And so one time then they were out of body, and they perceived their guide standing there next to this huge table and just had this big feast. It was just the most delicious food you can imagine, and this person was like, looked over to the guy. It's like, wow, what's this for? And it's like, no reason. And then boom, he was out of body, meaning back in his body again. And, and so, and the whole point was that, there's because they were taken over and just kind of doing whatever, doing their thing, and kind of ignoring the other beautiful part that was set up for them to be had and learned about. And so to kind of get their attention, the guy did that in the sense of, it's like, here's this beautiful thing, and you wonder what's that about, and like, nothing, go back, And so it's almost like a playful way to basically kind of reflect to them what they were doing the whole time, instead of looking at this feast that was prepared for them and ready to go, right, to learn about certain things. They were just like flying around, being silly, doing whatever, Anyway, so one of the questions is from Hazel's asking, can you ask them if they have a message for this well-deserving group? I don't know how well-deserving we are, but
No, I think she's dead on. Yeah, I saw that question a second ago, and I kind of closed my eyes while you were listening. Yeah, I can hear them from day to day. Sometimes more direct than others. A lot of times I can't understand exactly what they're saying, but in a situation like this, we've got a lot of energy here. I can hear them quite well. So, but yeah, and the message is very clear in this case, and it's to get a hold of your people, every single one of you. If you can imagine, you've all got guides that are sitting there just dying for you to reach out to them in some way, and I want to explain real quick how to do that. Most of you live in a bubble, and that I don't mean this in a negative way so much. It's just that what happens when you're a human is that you create these things that you say, well, this is all the things that I accept as being okay for my experience. And if you can break that bubble by telling yourself, whether it be before you go to bed or something like that, to just say, like, look, I don't know what might happen from here forward, but I know I want to get a hold of my guys. Guys, if you can hear me, say it out loud if you can. They can hear you better if you say it out loud. They literally can. They can hear your mind, but your mind is cluttered with a lot of junk. And if you want to get a message across, say it out loud. Go in your closet, in your bedroom, whatever. If you've got people that you're afraid to be around, go in your truck, whatever, or your vehicle or whatever, and just make a clear statement that you're okay with this, and be ready to face the fear of what might happen. Because when something real happens, there is a very real fear, and it's simply your own self experiencing the fear of the unknown. You're not necessarily experiencing anything negative. It's just the fear of the unknown. Your body's going to react, and when it does, you just gotta lock down and say, it's okay, it's okay, it's okay. And as you have more and more of these experiences, you'll find out that it will all settle out, and you'll be in good shape. But it will be your people that come to you. They know how to get to you. They know what you're okay with. And if you block them off by simply saying, I'm not okay with anything outside of, what I think to be real, and you won't experience a whole lot. But, people in this group, I know a lot of people are really open here, and there's people that are really wishing they could get a message from their guys. And that is what I call I call them my guys. Same way Sherry Wild does. She uses the same terminology, which is just a coincidence. But, I don't know what else to call them. I mean, I could call them guides, but I don't know.
Your
They just
crew.
seem more like, yeah, they just seem more like families almost, right? But it's just like this group of, non-physical beings that are some combination of people that I look up to, plus people that are like equal to me. So anyway, but yeah, find your own people, and they will come to you. They absolutely will. If you're open enough and you've got the ability to keep yourself together when it does happen. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely to keep going, because a lot of us tend to shy away from that fear, but to just, okay, you're fearful, do it again. Okay, you're fearing, that's okay, do it again. Do it again, keep over
Yep.
until it finally gets over that hump. But most people don't. It's like, oh, fear gone, I don't want to be there again. So that's what most of us think.
Yeah.
Crypto had a question. I don't know if he's still available, raising a hand. I'm going to unmute him now. Crypto, if you can hear this, unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question.
Howdy. I was just wondering, I had a couple, I really wish I had more time to think, but just off the handle, I wanted to know about like a belly aching laughter experience, and then maybe also your most recent one. Like,
Okay. Yeah, but well,
Thanks, Crypto.
yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you for the
Sure.
question. Yeah, the laughter experience. So I've heard of a lot of people having these kind of things. And honestly, I've not had a full-blown laughter experience like that. But I tell you what, I have had a lot of is these feelings of overwhelming love and overwhelming care, like the world is perfect, like all is well. I mean, there's definitely some laughter that comes out of that, but I wouldn't call what I think you're referring to is an experience that a lot of people do have that I don't know that I've had that directly, but yeah, it will happen from time to time, and I wish they would just turn that on all the time, but they seem to, that's like a universal morphine or something. It's like they just they just drop it out there once in a while. I know what it is. They want you to create it on your own. They want you to learn how to build that within you. And they've literally made fun of me for not being able to do this. And I don't take this the wrong way. It's just that they do this sometimes where they're just kind of like, oh yeah, you don't know how, huh? Whatever. Anyway, so they're very personable, believe it or not. They're very much like people, like you would know, like good friends of yours that they remember and you don't. You just have to deal with that.
Right.
But but even that's about my last experience. And so this was the last real legitimate experience. Now I have a lot of small things that happen all the time, and even from day to day. Like I said, I can hear them, whisper in my ear more or less pretty regularly. But those I don't really consider experiences so much. The last real experience I had was my main guide that I consider Myra, her and three. You hear these beings, they'll call them tall whites or Pleiadians or whatever. I have always considered them to be Pleiadian. They've never said the word Pleiadian, but that's how my brain registers it when I see them. These three Pleiadian women, they were tall, blonde, the typical thing that you hear people talk about. They showed up and they were there to bring me some kind of healing. This is pretty common. I don't know how many people have experienced this. It's pretty common for these beings to show up and to give you some kind of healing. And sometimes it can even be a little bit uncomfortable or a lot uncomfortable. But in this case, they put their hands around like my abdomen area, and what the only way I could describe it is they electrocuted me. That's what it feels like. It's not quite electrocution, but it's like they can inject some kind of energy into your system. And I have no idea what they were fixing, but I've got a few problems, and they pointed these issues out. One of them, I can't breathe real well out of my right nostril, and they said, "Oh, you've been through a lot of cold fronts." And she was like poking around on my nose, and they were just there to tune me up a little bit. So this is a relatively common experience, but that in general was relatively unique, that it was these three tall blonde Pleiadian type ladies. They were beautiful, and they were very kind and very, very easygoing. I mean, just the kind of people you just never want them to leave. They were there for a long time. It was like 30 minutes. That I experienced that. So, but yeah, that was the last one, and it was about I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago when that happened. And like I say, there's been lots of little things here and there, but I don't count them all.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, Stephen, Sheldon is asking, and I've heard this before. I don't remember exactly what. I think it's a person. Says, what do you think about Anjali?
I don't know that name. I'm surprised I wouldn't. I used to listen and watch everything out there. And to be honest with you, in the last like 5 years or so, I just kind of stick with my own experiences. So I'm not sure who that is. If somebody can explain that or remind me, I'd be surprised if I hadn't heard about it.
Yeah, maybe somebody in the comments, if you're watching them too, might explain that real quick. Yeah, just before I go over to Telegram again, the 5D raver, he says, "Aren't you UFO Joe? You sound like UFO Joe."
I don't know who that is either.
I think
that sounds familiar, UFO Joe.
Yeah, I think it's somebody kind of doing similar things. We are just talking about UFOs and things like that, doing their own thing. Okay, I'm gonna go to Anna. Anna, you are unmuted on my end. Unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. You might have to tap on that button again to be able to speak.
Hi, I have a question for Steven. When you say experience, do you mean astral projection or lucid dreaming?
Yeah, thanks, Anna, for the question. Yeah, absolutely. So they it can come in a number of different ways. I mean, I have some experiences that I'm completely awake in 3D, like anybody would be. And then some are what you would consider astral projection. A lot of them are like astral projection, but within astral projection, I would say there's more than one level, and that's what I was talking about earlier, where some of these experiences are as if you were in something like a created story, and it's like you're playing out some story that it's I can't say where they necessarily come from, but it's like you wake up and you're inside of a video game or something, and it's there to teach you something, or it's there to show you something, and that feels like astral projection for sure. But then there's also situations where I'm actually leaving my body, going somewhere else, and I actually have the sensation of, traveling there at a very high rate of speed, sometimes with other beings. Sometimes it just feels like I'm just being blasted off. I mean, used to it was relatively subtle in the very beginning, but now it's like, I mean, I've had times where I just feel like I get snagged out of here when I'm hardly paying attention. So, it can happen in a lot of different ways. But yes, astral projection is definitely so. Lucid dreaming is another little deal. I mean, if you're dreaming at all, you've got a layer on top of what's really going on there. So your mind is putting a layer of information in front of what your being is actually experiencing. That's why dreams can be so strange sometimes. So, but in the case of lucid dreaming, it's just where you're dreaming and you realize you're dreaming and you're able to go and manipulate things, but you're not actually awake. Astral projection, you're completely awake. I mean, in astral projection, or what I'm calling astral projection, when I come back, I get up, I mean, I'm wide awake. Matter of fact, most of the time when it happens, I'm nowhere near asleep when it happens. So then there's probably one or two other types of experiences. One of them is, missing time. I know you guys have probably heard these kind of things where, in my case, missing time has always been where I maybe sit down in the bed. I, haven't even got anywhere near sleep. And I look at the clock and, I look back at the clock a minute later and it's 6 hours, and all of a sudden we've lost all this time. And in that case, I have no memory of what happened. Sometimes I can go back and find out if I really want to, but I've had one or two experiences where I lost time, where I was actually out in the world doing things, and all of a sudden an hour is gone or 2 hours is gone and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a myriad of different things. I hope that answers your question.
Okay, thank you for your question, Anna. Well, the next one is not so much a question, just a very considerate Hazel. She says, Ednan, if you need a bathroom break, we can chat for a minute or two. Thanks. Yeah, no, not today. It's just that I've been meaning to get like more padding on this chair. It's maybe too much information for all of you watching, but after about 2.5 hours, my butt starts falling asleep. So it might be nice having some little cushion for this chair. That's why I'm kind of shifting back and forth in the chair like this.
What?
But yeah, thank God I can, I've over time, I've always learned to multitask, to literally be able to listen and actually do something else and also hear fully what the other person said, so if I look like I'm doing other things or doing whatever, don't worry, I am paying attention 99.9% of the time. Yeah, I don't know about they've been trying to have someone else explain. I think Anjali, was that a person that was, so Sheldon, if you're listening, I guess just I know you said you were at work, so maybe a yes or no. If you can just confirm what I was saying, is this a person that's going back to some kind of cave where there's supposed to be some alien race that have underground tunnels, and so they will basically then kind of meet with her? She's going back with a team or something like that. Am I correct in thinking that, or is this something else? I'm gonna wait to see what Sheldon says, because I've heard of it. Some people have been talking about it. I just have not. It's very selfish to say it in this way, but family and other things like take so much more precedent that even if like somebody was telling me, hey, UFO landed in DC, I'm like, that's great, I gotta go change diapers right now. That's how my life has been. And so I haven't been like keeping up with whatever the most up-to-date recent thing is. I mean, I do follow, like with the report and all that, and that kind of fell out of focus, since that was, for most people, that was kind of a dud. So anyway, yeah, 5D rave, I need a NASA butt pillow, I guess. But anyway, so I'm waiting for Sheldon to confirm if he heard what I said, if that's true, or why don't I wish there was this thing where we could just go to and like type stuff into and we get answers.
I've heard.
I find
like
myself
this.
like turning old. I'm sitting there talking about. I give my mother-in-law, shit all the time about her doing stuff like the old-fashioned way, and I always be answering in a very sarcastic way. Like she was like, "Oh, what we can do is we can like scan this in, and then we'll go and scan the other page and blah blah blah." I was like, yeah, you can, or you just send it to him digitally. Like she was going to print something, scan it back in, and then convert it back to digital, which made no sense whatsoever, but it did in her head. So anyway, let me see
I
here.
understand. I've just vaguely Googled this, and
I keep
all
getting
can see
like
is an
yoga
actor.
stuff and actress, but no, I don't think so. It's he said yes. Okay, Claudine also said yes. She's taken a group of different people, including scientists, physicists, journalists, to Mojave Desert to the base of aliens. Where, I'm curious, like that didn't enter my field of view, at least. Claudine, can you maybe expound, or someone that can actually log into Telegram to chat with me if writing is too long, to kind of expound how did this happen and where the origin of this came from? Because it seems like really like out of nowhere news for me, and it probably is for others too. So I'd appreciate it if one of you wouldn't mind logging in to actually chat and say something about this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know
Right.
there's a lot of previous information about ET bases and all that kind of stuff. I've personally never seen anything in my experience that would lead me to believe that that's something
Well,
real.
hell, I
it
mean,
may be.
Right. Claudine just said she gave a conference in Washington, D.C. to invite people to contact her. So if you guys have a link in there or something like that, please send it to me. I'd love to contact her and then just talk to her, have her on, either one of those Fridays. So if this is more time sensitive things, then I could have a stream a lot sooner and just have her come on, and then you guys can chat with her directly. Because I don't know if you guys noticed, that's what I've been trying to do with this channel, to give options for you guys to actually get in touch with a lot of the people that I interview, so that you can talk to them directly, speak to them directly, find your own answers directly. I can only do so much by asking questions, asking the general things, thinking that this is something you might be interested in, so I ask it. But then, of course, through Telegram, you have that option to talk to them and get in touch with them and whatever else. Hazel said, when I Googled it, I got a dating agency. Yeah. Oh, chat does not allow links. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I don't think I have that. I wonder if there's an option that I can change in mine. Well, What about, well, under ufohub.net, on the very bottom, there's contact. If you click on that, you can fill out that form and just paste whatever links are in there and send them my way. Or if you're already part of the Telegram group, just go to the Telegram chat and paste it there. It'll definitely show up because Telegram is not as restrictive. And maybe comments also. Later when this stream is over, and I think in the comments itself you can paste a link, because I'm not restricting links, just some people are spamming and they're sending links to like other places that are not like UFO related. It's some of them are dating sites and other stuff, so I generally kind of sift through those. But if there's some useful links and something that someone else can learn, I usually leave them on there, and just the more knowledge the better. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I'm hoping one of you watching will actually go to ufohub.net, and on the very bottom you will see a contact. Let me see if I open up one.
Yeah, I see what they're talking about now. Delivers her first press conference at the foot of Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. regarding her contact with higher beings and the subsequent soft disclosure of humanity's need to evolve and transcend to a higher fourth density. So that's a YouTube link I can potentially.
Okay. Well, any contact or any information extra that any of you watching have, right there in the very bottom, there's contact. You click on that, and you should be able to just fill out this form, and I will get it. I always read them. I might not always get back to people, but I always do receive it. Oh, there it is, voice chat. Tell me again. I'm sorry. Tell me again, Stephen. You said it was on YouTube.
Yeah, I put the link in the chat there. You can in the YouTube chat, and yeah, he's saying that she had delivered her press conference at the foot of the Lincoln Memorial, talking about contact with higher beings.
Can you let me see? Can you guys hear that?
Maybe I can move this camera closer.
Am I looking at the right one?
That doesn't work.
Is this the right video?
No battery pack.
Hey,
No power.
could
Mix up
we
with the internet. We're lucky to be
strap
here.
this to that one of those stands so I can get this closer to her?
I think it was almost out of morbid
No,
curiosity
just-
that they said. Sure.
No, I'm not going to be.
Boy, watching this makes me feel a whole lot better not being organized.
You really got it together, believe
Why
me.
he's here or why I
Carry sound.
Why you picked it? Why you picked it?
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, I'm watching the video, and I'm actually sending it out to everyone else also on the stream. So if this is it.
Yeah, it's already. Okay, thank you all for coming here to this beautiful setting for one of the most amazing announcements I think the planet will hear. This is Anjali, who's had direct experience with these beings. They've come to her, they've directed her to be here, and she's going to deliver a statement from her experience and also see what else wants to be said today. So thanks so much for being here, Anjali. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and go ahead, it's all yours. Thank you all for being here. We'll take questions after.
yes. Hi, good afternoon. Many of you know me by Anjali, because that's how I chose to come forward with the name of what the higher beings that I am here to disclose to you about today have called me since I have become aware of their presence.
Okay, well, anyway, so this is the video. So I will, if you can see this, it's basically, if you just do a search online, Anjali press conference live in DC, you should be able to bring that up and watch it. I thought maybe she might get to a point quicker, but I don't want to basically just spend most of the time just rewatching a video while we're streaming. I'd rather interact with all of us until it's time to go. Which might be right about now, unless there's something else that you wanted to maybe cover, Stephen, or wanted to say that you didn't get to.
No, there's I've got plenty of stories and such, but that was the basis of it, and that's basically what I wanted to say. And I appreciate everybody listening, and I will certainly go check out Anjali now. But
Yeah, no, I'll
yeah.
see and I'll watch it and then also then reach out and see if then she would be interested to come on and actually do a live stream so that all of you guys can log in and ask questions. Then depending on how many log in to ask questions, I might not be able to get to everybody, but I always try to do as long of a Q&A as possible because I'm trying to always be respectful of the guests because sometimes they, if it were up to me, I would love to talk to them as much as they can give me until we kind of get to like a loop around, and that's when usually my cue is like, okay, let's go into Q&A, but a lot of times guests would be like, okay, only 45 minutes, only hour and a half, only 1 hour, only this. So I have to, because I'm grateful them taking the time to talk to me, I just take, but very strict to that time. So I'll just go through whatever I think I need to be asking of them, get through that, do some Q&A, and then sign off. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Stephen, thanks very much. I really appreciate you sharing this. It's been, very great and refreshing that there's, others to just come out and talk about this what the rest of the world considers weird stuff, because once you had the experience and those listening that are feeling like they're onto something, they know it's beyond weird. It's the truth of being, and I appreciate you to, have that courage to just come out and speak about it and not worry about what someone else might think, because that's something I always encourage on this channel. It's like just leave normal behind and join the crazy group here. So
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
yeah, thank you, Stephen. Yeah, as always, if you get on Telegram and raise your hand like Terry just did, I'm going to get to her quick, here soon too, because she might have something else to say or talk about. I'm not that tired, but sometimes, if I feel like, okay, well, it's a good time to conclude, then I'll conclude. But yeah, no, log in again, if you remember more things, please share it with us. It can only, benefit.
Absolutely. I'll do it.
All right. Well, thanks again. Yeah, and you have a good night.
All right. You too.
Terry, you are unmuted on my end. Unmute yourself on yours, and you'll be able to talk to me.
Hi there.
How you doing?
Thank you. I'm well. How are you?
Oh, just fine. Just just a bit anxious sitting here for a while, but it's all going good.
Yeah. I'm sorry I didn't make it on time to ask Stephen a question, and that was, I was wondering if there is an idea of where from the 3 waves of volunteers may have come in from. If there are specific, I guess, levels of consciousness, specific planetary areas.
Oh, I see. So
that
you're
these
not
waves-
asking about what is the 3 waves of volunteer. It's just basically where are they from of 3 waves.
Yeah. Yes, I'm wondering about.
But you are familiar with
that
Dolores
because-
Cannon, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, good deal. Stephen, you're unmuted, and if you want to answer that.
Yeah. So I don't know the extent of it, and I don't know that anybody does, to be honest. But what I can say is that they're definitely from multiple multiple local star systems. You know, we consider places like the Pleiades or, uh, you know, um, a lot of the common star systems you hear is we consider these to be local,
Yes.
but you know,
Terry, can you
I
mute
don't
yourself, please? I'm sorry to interrupt. There's some feedback on your end. I won't mute you, but mute yourself. And then if you want to ask another question after, you can. It's just there's some feedback kicking back into the mainstream.
Okay, I thought that might have been me.
No, that was Terry.
All right.
I was asking Terry if she
Okay.
can just mute herself.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, I thought that was me. I'm sorry. I was a little bit distracted by it because I was trying to find it on my side. I thought I had a window open. So, but yeah, I don't know exactly where the depths of where they're from. I've had beings say they're from Vega, and like say the Pleiades. There's something special about the Pleiades. There's something. They seem to be like a higher. It's almost like they're a higher dimensional copy of us. Like a lot of people that have experiences of beings in the Pleiades, they'll see versions of themselves that are higher. They're like smarter, better looking versions of themselves than here. And I've seen this myself and heard other people talk about it. And that is absolutely true. I don't know what it is about the Pleiades, but they seem to be the most linked to us. And then on top of that would be probably Vega and Vega, the Lyra system, and the Vega star, and that area. I've seen lots of things from there. Of course, you hear about Draco and whatnot, but there's, like I say, the Arcturians. I've run across a handful of these names in my experience, but what I gather from it is that there's all these different systems that we don't really know the names of, or like in a lot of cases, we don't even have the names of. There's a few places I've been told about that we don't even have a name for the place, but they're places, water planets and all kinds. It just goes as it just like Dolores Cannon's books are, the convoluted universe, and that is exactly what I've seen. Is that it's extremely convoluted. And even if you knew where they were, I'm not sure it would help you anyway, because I don't know that it would make much difference to you other than the fact that you would have a name that you could say, well, here's where they're from. What I can say is that these beings, the higher beings, are all kind of in the same, they're all on the same wavelength, and they might be in different physical locations, even if they're on a higher plane, but they're all kind of, whether they're on different planets or whatever, they're all almost in the, it's different than here, where if you were to go to China or somewhere like that, where people had a completely different culture, it would be very hard for you to relate to them. They don't have that problem. They can relate perfectly from group to group. So I hope that answers your question and helps you.
I just thank you for that. Am I okay to speak right now?
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, there's no one else wanting to ask questions, so that's when I don't mind if we all just chit chat.
Awesome, thank you. I appreciate that, Stephen. Thank you so much. So specifically, I was interested in whether or not you would mention the Arcturians. I apparently have a connection myself. I feel that energetically, and they speak about these other beings, and I guess it's just a term to say higher density is meant to imply higher, more highly evolved than us humans are at this particular point in time. That's very interesting. But to both of you, in listening, I have to tell you, this is the first time that I actually spent time really listening to this conversation on this channel, and it's wonderful. But I have a confusion, and maybe and I just want to put it out there. I'm not looking for a real I'm not looking for somebody to try to answer it for me. Okay, but the confusion is in the creation we talk about these, we know that there are, multiple beings in multiple dimensions within the creation. And then we have our spiritual teachers. I have one spiritual master myself, and they speak about opening that inner eye and going within. And they talk about going into the inner skies, and I have seen the inner skies myself, within myself. And it scared me, and so I came back. So there's this on the what appears to be on the outer planes within creation itself, which seems to be an existential environments. But then there's these inner realms, within the physical, and I can say the astral regions and the causal regions, and then beyond that. So I just want to put that out there. Like I said, I'm not looking for an answer there. It's just a confusion from the inner and the outer when we're talking about beings which are, on the other side of the veil within this creation, one veil or another veil, and let me add, I have a night vision camera in my own home, and I'll turn that on at 3 or 5 in the morning, and there's orbs everywhere. They're coming through in droves. They come through in groups. And I've known forever that, as beings in creation, we travel together. Groups of children come in together. They're born at the same time. They're here to do something. But I get orbs that are flying all over the place. They don't communicate with me. They just don't stop. They just go through and they blink and blink and blink and go through the wall. But there'll be 100 at a time coming through. It's amazing. It used to scare me. It doesn't scare me anymore. So there's so much going on at this moment in creation. It's amazing. And I'm so happy that people are waking up to that and in fact embracing it. So I'm gonna end right there. Sorry for going on so much, but I just wanted to put that to your channel.
Well, no, there's nothing to be sorry about. I mean, that's why we have this platform, especially during open lines for, especially when it's not this busy, for people to express more of an opinion and thought out concept of a thought, So,
Yes.
okay, sorry, I kept hearing. I guess you're listening also to us on your same device. Okay, thank you. Stephen, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I'd love to respond to that. Yeah, I know right where you are. I really do. I remember being there, when you first become aware of just how much is going on the other side, it is extremely confusing, because the first thing that happens is you realize there's so much, and as humans we want to make that into something you can understand on this side. And you can organize your thoughts and how you see this, if for the sake of conceptualizing it in your head, but you actually don't have to. You can just say, well, I just recognize that there's a lot, and I'll learn as I go, and that to try to let it be as it is. But one way to do this, if you want to conceptualize it, is that rather than to worry about, fifth, sixth, seventh density or dimension, whichever term you want to use, which actually mean different things. But anyway, really we have just the 3D world here, and then you have the multi-dimensional world beyond this, which is what you're considering the astral and whatnot. There is no sign between dimensions. It's like you're now entering the 5th dimension or the 6th or whatever, It's really just that you're in multidimensionality. And what that means is that you're in a non-linear space. And it's very confusing, because in a non-linear space, you can experience multiple timelines happening at the same time. You can be in multiple places at one time. Sometimes this happens to me where I'll get confused between two different experiences because they're both happening at once. And that's what's going on in in the multidimensional world. But then there's a world you could call past that would be the divine world, which is a world of nothing but it's not a world of form, and this is what you hear people trying to reach, samadhi or something like that. They're trying to reach this divine world of nothing but pure bliss, and that's what's beyond the multidimensional or astral worlds, which not near as many people have experienced that as they have the astral world. A lot of people have slipped into the astral for a moment or two, at least in their dreams or something, so. But yes, if it scared you, that means you were more awake when it happened. In other words, you were both conscious in your 3D sense, and at the same time, you were experiencing multidimensionality and the pure vastness of it, and the feeling that you can literally feel other consciousnesses around you. And you mentioned the orbs, so. I don't know if you caught the beginning of this, but when I was a kid, I was saying that I just felt like there were just continuous beings around me everywhere, and there is. And you can see them as orbs. And the minute that you slip into the other side, you can feel that there's consciousness everywhere. It feels like there's a person in the room with you, but it's not that. It's that it's a little bit of an uncomfortable concept, but you are constantly being watched by beings that they're not there to hurt you by any means. They just want to see what you're going to do. And there's all different perspectives out there, and as far as what the beings are particularly doing there. But nevertheless, there is it's a little bit uncomfortable, but you're being watched all the time. So that is what that's where a lot of the fear comes from. Whenever you slip into that other side, you get that feeling of like, oh my gosh, I'm standing on a stage, because that's what Earth is. It's a big stage. So, but one other thing, you mentioned the Arcturians. We'll talk just a little bit about them there. Typically, when people see Arcturians, they see something. It's not quite like what's on his mug there. Like that's a little bit like overdone, like the head there. You know what I mean? It's a little bit exaggerated, but they do kind of have a similar. Often
similar,
they have a
not
shape.
the same, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit shorter, and the eyes aren't quite. Yeah,
this is
big
meant more to be the gray, not a representation of them. Of the Arcturians.
I realize, but nevertheless, I'm just using as an example. Is that's generally how people see them, and they're usually very kind and they're very chill. They're personable, but they carry a very divine way about them. And if you interact with them very much at all, they're what I've seen of them in any way is that their whole world is healing. They're going from place to place and trying to comfort people in lots of different ways. Some of them are not physical. Some of them are physical. I had one experience with them where I went with them to comfort this lady that was in sheer terror after the, I don't know if it's okay. Can I say the C word? About the virus.
There's no limitation. There's no limitation on whatever.
Yeah. So when COVID came about in 2020, there was a lot of fear of the virus, and I don't know what you think about that, but nevertheless, we had went to this house, and there was a lady there by herself in her bed wearing a mask, and I could sense the fear that she had. And I was there with an Arcturian to try to settle her fear. And so all we did was, in her sleep, we, just walked up to her and put our hands on her to calm her down a little bit. And I don't know her story or anything about it, but this is what the you know, from my perspective, I was just taken on a trip to, like, he was just showing me, like, this is what we do, this is what you do when you're not here, you know, and so we went through this multi-dimensional trip into somebody's house. It was really wild. It was an amazing thing. But they are so caring and so loving, and at the same time, they're very personal. You know, I mean, they're very personable. They're, you know, they'll laugh and joke. It's very strange. So, but yeah, that's been my experience with them. So.
Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. Just real quick, for the 5D raver. So if some things are muted on your end, it's because you had to typed in something YouTube didn't agree with. So it basically leaves it up to me to allow it or not. But there are some times where I do have to kind of put you in timeout because you do exactly what you're almost doing now, where you put 2 words per sentence and then you just spam the chat. So I hope you can just kind of put it all in a paragraph, make your point, and then let someone else actually get a chance to answer. It seems like, I'm glad you're having a good time, but when there's nothing there but just your chat, that's when I usually have to put you in a little timeout. I think you noticed that by now, but I'm glad you're here. I'm happy you're here, but that's what's going on. A lot of times, like, there's something you said just now about satanic, and when I went to YouTube, it flagged it, so I allowed it because I didn't think it was anything bad about that. But in reference to your comment saying something about me muting your typings, so that's what's been happening. Well, let me see, Paulie, you're unmuted on my end. Unmute yourself on yours. I guess, Stephen,
Hi.
you don't get to leave today.
Yeah,
I'm
this
good,
is
man. I'm
Russell.
here.
A few years ago, I started getting really interested in astral projection and stuff like that. And I found an interesting community on Reddit. Read all this stuff. It got me excited, and I think I had to take a break because I was having unsuccess, and then I bought this stuff called galantamine. It's like a supplement on Amazon, and all the reviews are like, wow, this stuff really works for lucid dreaming. So I took it with the intent to, wake up and get out of my body. And I did. And I was kind of stuck, and I was in my room, and I sat up, and it felt like I was floating, but half my body was still there. And then something grabbed me on the shoulder, and it felt very real. And I thought, okay, I'm just not going to look, and I'm just going to get out of my body and try to float out the window or something fun like that. And then it got real aggressive and kind of grabbed me by the mouth almost and pushed me in. And I just said, I don't want this anymore. I want to wake up. And I did. And it felt very real, like a very real something touching me. Do you know anything about that? Are those what they call shadow beings, stuff like that?
Oh man, I'm glad you said something about that. I didn't bring that particular topic up, but this is a good topic here because this is a very misunderstood thing. So you can hear that rattling. That's a bottle of glutamine that's sitting on my desk right here. So just so happens to be. I don't take it that often, but yeah, it definitely is. It's helpful if. You got to kind of learn how to use it. And I would tell everybody to be careful with any medication that, you take or whatever. But yeah, glutamine's definitely helpful to, what it really does is it allows you to sleep, but to stay conscious. And if you want to get out of your body, that's what you really got to do. And there's a couple of ways to go about this. One is to just sleep as much as you possibly can until you're not tired anymore. And then try to go to sleep early that night. If you're going to have an out-of-body experience, that's when you'll have it, because you need a lot of energy to stay conscious. Because really what you're doing is you're trying to keep one foot on both sides. You're trying to keep one in 3D where you can hold the memories, and you're trying to keep one in the astral realm. Because you're really,
could you explain that again? You said sleep as much as you can the night before, and then I don't understand. Okay.
Oh yeah. So in other words, you want to be completely rested So if you can go to bed without being tired, which most of us don't do, everybody wears themselves out. But, if you can go to bed after, so say the previous night you slept, 12 hours or as long as you could possibly sleep in as long as you could, and then go to sleep after, say, 11 hours, or, but have a short day where you don't do a whole lot and you go to sleep that night. And what that'll do is when you actually do sleep, you'll sleep very light. And that way, because here's the thing is that a lot of people go out of body all the time and they don't remember it. But you want to be able to remember it. And the best way to do that is to not go into a coma when you go to sleep. You want to stay right there on the edge. And so there's, a lot of nuance here in this, but more or less, you've got to have enough energy to be able to hold 1 foot in 3D and one in the multidimensional world. So does that make sense?
Yeah. Do you have you done binaural beats? Or there's one guy on YouTube, I think he's got these tapes where it makes clicking sounds every 15 minutes or so to wake you up, and then it stops clicking, but then your mind anticipates a click, so it kind of fake wakes you up just to keep you in that limbo.
Right. That's and I have done a little of that. I hadn't found that. Well, I mean, I don't really need it, but it's not that I wouldn't do it. It's just that I don't generally need it. But yeah, it does work, and I know a lot of people that have tried to do this. But you're exactly right. That's what it's trying to do is to keep you in that, wake your consciousness up, but not your body, and then you can actually do whatever. But I want to address your shadow being or whatnot. I'll tell you what.
Just
a lot
real
of
quick,
this
I'm sorry to
is.
interrupt before you move on. I
Yeah.
think binaural beats would be great for the beginners, because that
Yes.
was my very first experience of like what it actually would feel like. It's very, it jolts you, and you quickly get out of it when it starts happening. But it gives you a pretty good idea by just simply, not having to do much other than to put the headphones on and listen to it while you're trying to lay down and not falling asleep. So I think that would be really good for beginners. I mean, it helps the more you get used to it, to keep using it, but if you're too afraid of whatever taking in something that might have some adverse effects or whatever, that would be a good option.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. It's there's a lot of stuff out there. For anybody that's trying to have one of these experiences, there's a lot of not just binaural beats, but there's different meditations you can do. There's a lot of people out there. There's even some coaches out there that are people that can like try to guide you of how to, make this happen. But whatever, there's, if you're into this sort of thing, there's a lot of help out there, which just blows my mind, to be honest, because I started this when I was a little kid and there was nothing. I mean, by the time the internet came out, I didn't even know to call it astral projection. And so, it's really amazing that we have all this today. But talking about the shadow beings, so here's the thing that a lot of people don't get is that most of the time it's not shadow beings and like these negative beings that run around that are actually trying to hurt you. It's generally human beings. And like there are plenty of people that are running around out of body that may show up in your experience. And this is what I call a visitation. And so, you may have.
When you say human, you're talking about incarnate right now or like deceased?
They could be either one. Most of the time they're incarnate. Yeah. I mean, they're people that they might even be somebody to be honest.
The thing about the shadow beings, and I think it's fun to bring it up at parties and ask people, have you ever seen this shadow guy? But and a lot of people have shared it, and people that are not interested in any of this stuff. But a lot of people have had these stories. But I'm just wondering if do they just hang out in bedrooms, or do they know when somebody's sneaking out of their body? What do they have nothing better to do? What's going on with these things?
No, that's a good question. No, because you're because the space is multidimensional. It's
So it caught me
multidimensional,
off guard.
nonlinear space. No, he's laughing. I'm gonna laugh. You're killing
Oh
me.
my, I'm sorry.
It's true though. It does sound absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
I'm totally on. You know, anybody that wants to make fun of this stuff, like high five. You know, like I'm down.
Oh,
Because it does sound ridiculous, but no, what's really going on is that you're in a multi-dimensional space and the time is
oh
not the
Lord.
same. So I'll tell you a semi-embarrassing story, just to highlight this. I had a girlfriend at one time that would come see me. She lived in another state a long way away. And she would do something to me every time. Like one time, she clawed my back just trying to wake me up. She would leave her body, come to me, and claw me just to try to make me remember. And I would remember, but when I experienced it versus when she experienced it was plus or minus 2 days. You know, and so in other words, when it happened to her was not the same time as when it happened to me. And you know, this was just something that this went on for, I don't know, like a year or something, where she would do some little something to me to try to wake me up, and I'd do something to her. But anyway, we went back and forth with this. And so what I suspect is that when you made it out of body, you're outside of regular time. And so whenever that experience actually happened could have been not right that moment. In other words, I don't think they were just sitting there for hours and hours waiting on you to jump out of your body and then grab you by the face. You know, I think
I thought I was breaking the rules or something, and maybe they're like not ready and pushed me back. Oh.
No, you should just turned around and just said like, "What?"
No,
You know?
not as
They can't hurt you.
Well, I know personally, like it seems, you know, because sometimes the intention, at least in my experience, I couldn't figure out what it was, because when I was at the Robertsville house, you know, many years ago, I would be, you know, be late, I'll be washing dishes or whatever, and I could see the corner of my eye of something there, and I turn around, and I would just see this black haze of a figure. Right, it wasn't anything like solid, but very, you know, see-through and all that. And I would just kind of stare at it like, what's up, you know? And you know, it would just be that, and then it would kind of disappear, and I would just go back to washing dishes. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on, why this is occurring. You know, maybe while I'm in that washing dishes state, you know, because, you know, you don't have to be closing your eyes and sitting down to be meditating, right? And a lot of times, if you do anything you love, like painting, a hobby or something like that, you get into this meditative state. So washing dishes is just as much of a meditative state as anything else can be. And so maybe because of that, I got, you know, myself into a certain frequency to where that was more visible. Because, you know, like we were talking about earlier, Stephen, you just kind of invite all these weird things, you know, to your house in a way too, you know, and then surround you all the time, you know. So but it wasn't harmful. It wasn't anything dark, you know. I mean, it looked dark, you know, visually, but nothing that I was afraid of.
Was that line of sight or out of the peripheral vision?
No, noticed it in the peripheral, but then I could turn to it and I could see it, you know. And it was just, again, you know, I mean, middle of the woods, an empty house. No one else in there but me. And, you know, it just weird stuff would happen like that. You know, there's others where I call them the black or black hole orbs, you know, where the way when I was kind of always taking my time painting and renovating things, so I would have a lot of white walls in the house, and so I would be watching a projector, whatever I was projecting on the screen, and I could then slowly just see this thing moving along the wall. I could turn to it, and it's basically looks like a black ball haze that's on the wall, and then as I turned to it more to look at it, I could just see it kind of go around the corner, so it gets into, you know, you could see it moving along the wall and getting around. So I would quickly get up, turn on the light in the kitchen, and then of course there's nothing there. And so there's things like that happen all the time. Now some people would, you know, scare the shit out of them, but I was so curious, like, okay, I mean, why are you not explaining more to me? Why is not more happening? I mean, obviously, you're here. I'm not shunning you away. So, spend some time, explain it to me. That's always been my mindset and the energy I was always giving off. But yeah, I wish I could, at least for myself, know more, like what in the world exactly that was. I mean, obviously, different forms, different vibrations of existence, but what exactly, like, how we always like to label things. This is Arcturians, that's this is out of body, this is that. And so I wish there was more of an explanation other than hearing it called, shadow people, or these shadows. Other than that, I don't know that there's anything else that I can particularly, from my personal experience, point at and say that's what that is.
Yeah, now that you mention it, it's been a while since I've seen those, but I used to see them pretty regularly. But exactly what you said, they never messed with me, or they never messed. I actually knew several people that had seen them, and far as I know, they never really interacted with anybody directly. You would just see them like go down a hallway or cross between two rooms or something like that. They were just like a black shadow type thing. But I have kind of learned, that I mean, just because it's black doesn't mean it's bad or dark or whatever.
Right.
I'm not sure what they are, but they don't seem to interact, and they're definitely real. I mean, I saw them quite a bit as a kid, but it's been years since I've seen one of those things. I don't know what they do, or what their purpose is, but they seem to be just I guess you could say that might be a good explanation of a shadow being, but I like I say, I don't think they're truly evil or anything. I think they're just they're just on the edge of our visible light spectrum in the same way that the orbs are.
Yeah, that's the other part, though, when once you learn, or by accident, however it happens to you, that you shift these different dimensions and you become more aware of what else is out there, besides being absolutely weird, to realize, wow, this is also reality, because you only think of what you know on this planet, right? Well, besides all that, there's so much of that out there, to where I don't know that it would be possible to immediately being able to identify and categorize every single time. It's just something like take it in as it came and leave it at that. What I personally loved is, like, especially my brother and his wife, when they would come over, and they would sometimes stay over the weekend. And so we kind of, there's nothing else there to do other than to maybe watch a movie, or all of us just sitting around the table and talking. So I would just tell them about previous weeks, what's been happening, and they would literally be up all night. That would not be, there would just be like every shush and move or whatever, because I had forgotten how scared, I guess, quote unquote, normal people get when they hear that, to where, they're like, how can you sleep? I'm sleeping, snoring away, and I was like, this stuff happens all the time, but to them it was absolutely scary. And she's like, I think I saw something, I saw a shadow and all this other stuff, but I'm not sure, and I was like, okay, well, you might have, I don't know. I mean, you know what you saw or didn't saw, but it was just funny, to watch, I guess, normal people react in the way they react, because it was, I guess, I can see why it would be difficult for a person that's considered normal to then be into this kind of stuff, and then not only that, but keep at it, because, like I was saying earlier, we always want to shy away from fear. It's like, okay, this is fearful, let's stay away from it, don't ever revisit it again. And that's how most of us handle our things in life. So it's the best part is when you do go back, whether it's a traumatic experience or a scary experience, you relook at it in a different way, and you get different information from it. It's hard how it happens, but it does. Like, initially, you have this defense mechanism, but once you allow it to be like, it's okay, just, that's fine, like, whatever, being afraid of a snake or being afraid of all these different things, the more you push yourself, the more you realize, like, oh, I'll get over this, and oh, there's more to understand here other than the initial perception.
You were talking earlier about the breakthrough, or what you call it, the beyond place, past astral, and I've fortunately been there through a shamanic practice I don't want to go into, but my girl said when she was sleeping, she woke up with butterflies flying around her room and she was swatting at them. She said, "Oh, it was a weird dream." And I made her explain all the details. And then I convinced her that she was in the astral and they were there. And I was seeing entities like that at about the same time in my other experience. So, my question for you guys, maybe Stephen, is during your astral projections, have you ever tried to interact with someone else or wake them up or astral project together by pulling them out? Is that a thing that's possible?
Yeah, yeah, it's possible there. So it's possible to an extent. So everybody has their protection beings around them, which are just their own guides or whatever. And you're not going to break through anybody's protection if they, like I have a daughter that she would be semi open to this, but I couldn't go snag her out of bed and drag her off somewhere, like because she's too young and it would be too fearful for her and all that kind of stuff. Even though she might tell me she'd be okay with it, but her own guidance wouldn't let that happen. But if you make a deal with somebody that is, able to handle it and wouldn't be too terrified of it, such as a loved one or something like that, and you came to him and you said, "Look, here, we're going to do this," especially if you're saying it out loud in 3D here, and you're making that choice, then absolutely, yeah, you can go to somebody that's asleep and you can try to drag them out. I've had it happen many times. Like I said, I explained earlier, I had a girlfriend that, this was just something we played with, trying to figure out just what were the limits of what we could do to each other. And, we had a great time with all that, but we had an agreement that we could do this. And, you could come see me, I could come see you, no rules, do whatever you want. Neither one of us was afraid. But like I say, I think there's definitely limits to that. I don't think you could go and haunt somebody. That's basically what I'm coming down to. Is I think you can just go, find somebody you dislike and drag them to the lower astral or something like that. So, and it wouldn't even be like, it wouldn't even be like you hit a wall. It would be just like you can't find them. If you tried to go towards them, it'd just be like they're not there.
Yeah.
So.
There's a guy on YouTube. He's not a YouTuber or anything. He's got it's kind of like this, just a few hundred people interested. And he posts, it's called Astral Club. The guy's named Rick. And he sounds sincere like you when he talks, and he tries to teach people how to do it. And he has some interesting stories. One of them, I don't know, this might sound silly, but he said one time during his astral, he tried to check out the White House. He thought it'd be neat to go there. And then while he's just roaming around, some kind of psychic security blocked him and said, "What are you doing here?" And then he buzzed off. And he talks about trying to explore secret places, and there's some kind of psychic protection. Is that far-fetched? Or I just thought that was pretty fascinating. And I don't know. You think there's psychic security out there? You mentioned there's people probably playing in the astral every night. Maybe there's,
Sure. Yeah, and that world is a lot more, it's a lot more active and real, and there's a lot more going on there. For one thing, there's a lot more beings there than there is here, and so yeah, it's absolutely possible. And matter of fact, there's books like the Lemurian Scrolls that talk about how there were monasteries years and years ago, like 50,000 years ago, where everybody there lived on all the different planes, or basically they lived in the astral and 3D, and they talked about the guardian beings that were at the monasteries and certain places within towns and whatnot. Now, as far as there being some kind of psychic protection on government places, I wouldn't doubt it, because it comes to people's intention. If you think of it like this, if you had a multitude of people that were extremely patriotic and, felt like their duty in life was to do nothing but protect government secrets. And this is what their being was, made of. And I guarantee you those people exist. Then, yeah, if you tried to, go find some kind of secret, you might run across one of those beings that's there as a guardian to not let you see things. But, now that you mention it, I have had at least one experience where this was actually not my experience, it's somebody else, where they were trying to do that, and they actually got to see some things. Not anything tangible enough, that would have made any difference, but they just saw that there was underground laboratories and underneath government facilities, and those laboratories are probably there. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but
Well, I mean, just real
that's
quick,
what.
if I may interject, it's of course, it's if you just think of the whole concept of remote viewing, that was governments spying on each other, Russians and USA. They
Yes.
basically wanted to find out what the Russians had, where they had it, and so they kind of tapped into this esoteric realm and seeing what the mind is capable of. So, just because we only hear about remote viewing doesn't mean that that has stopped or hasn't been developed since then. Whether it would be, because I mean, we're talking also not just physical beings to be there as blockers, for example, like in the White House or somewhere else, but also, I guess what we consider spiritual, just in this different dimension to just be, partaking. I mean, there's so much stuff. That's the part about, there's so much stuff
Well,
going on. What?
he also mentioned, I thought was interesting, that on one of his experiences he ran across a spirit, a deceased spirit. Maybe I think he mentioned it was maybe a junkie that was stuck and needed help or guidance to move on to where they're supposed to go. Do you think there are stuff like that? Well, I don't know what we call them, ghosts, or
Right.
or maybe sometimes
Well,
you hear that maybe the loved one, like a grandma, and she's really concerned about the family, and she won't move on to the next because she just wants to watch over, but she needs to be told it's okay. Stuff like that.
Stephen, just real quick, I'll let you get to that. I just want to answer Claudine's question real quick regarding
Yeah,
the
yeah,
orb.
please.
She was saying, did you see the black orb when you did not sleep for days? My sister was seeing shadows when she was sleep deprived. Well, no, I was not sleep deprived, but definitely your perception and your energy shifts when you're tired as opposed to being well rested, and so you randomly and unconsciously become aware of certain frequencies that then kind of enter your visual scope. So especially if you are deprived, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen, because I remember during one of these times when I was trying to go to do interviews in person. And so I would, one time I thought, okay, let's drive from, I drove from Minneapolis, Minnesota, drove down to where Sherry Wild lives to do an interview, and I was supposed to stay there, but then decided to then keep going. So basically it was a close to 8-hour drive to her house, and then after another 2-3 hours of interview, then from there another 9 hours to the house. I was so sleep deprived that I was really seeing things like the bridge would turn into like this giant and trying to like grab me, and I would like, what in the world is happening? So that was my not very safe experience of what actually happens when you don't get enough sleep. So I know what you're talking about, but no, I was not sleep deprived during this time when this happened. But yes, you can definitely change frequencies after a few days of no sleep. I'm sorry, Stephen, so go ahead and answer what Paulie was talking about.
Oh yeah, you're talking about the beings that are stuck or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, he said we saw a junkie, I believe, or something.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, so a few things to know about that. That is I've had it happen. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 times in, 20 years or 30 years or whatever it's been. And I know of a few other people that's had it happen as well. But every time I've seen this, for one, I can tell their sense of time is nothing like ours. So to them, even though, so the first group of beings that I saw like this were, this is very sad, but this was a family that I think the father or something had gone bad on the family or whatever, and I know this because I found the newspaper clipping of it later after I met these kids, and so anyway, I met these kids in this house, and I had a sense of roughly where I was. I didn't know exactly, and I mean, they didn't seem troubled necessarily, but there was a doorway with light behind it, and they were telling each other to stay away from that doorway. Like I say, to them, you could tell that this had just happened. Like maybe 2 weeks in their time had gone by, but yet this happened in the like 40s or 50s. I wish I could remember the name. I'd tell you, because you can actually look it up. But yeah, there was this horrible murder that had happened in this house, and the reason I had any link to it at all is because somebody that I was trying to help at the time was living in this house, and she told me, she said, there are these 3 kids that are here, and she said occasionally they will show up in her existence some way or another. So that was a place where I for whatever reason, it took me to there to see those kids. So those were somewhere they were traumatized and they weren't wanting to go over. But like I say, to them, the event, I could tell the event had just happened. And I've had some other times where it was like that too, where we tend to think that they're stuck in the sense that they've been living in this experience for years and years. And they're, sometimes they'll come to a person. I just talked to a person earlier this week, actually, that they were telling me they had a being coming to them and saying they were in trouble and they were stuck and they didn't know how to get across, And what I'm saying is that they're not going to stay in that state for very long in their sense of time, Eventually they will chill out and they will move on, and you might be able to help them. You might be able to say, hey, here's the doorway, which, like I say, is generally within your sight when this is happening. But it's not that they have to go into a doorway with light or anything like that. It's that when you leave this experience, it's kind of a little known thing. If you're traumatized or something, you're gonna go into a state where you're just gonna chill out for a little while. You're not gonna, your guidance is not, your beings, your whatever, your team is not gonna show up and grab you immediately and take you off. They're gonna let you chill out. And I don't know how long a time that would be in 3D time, but at some point you're eventually going to get the awareness that, okay, it's time to move on. But the mind, which still exists when you pass on, has to, it has to decompress. Mm-hmm.
There was also a documentary that it was like a film / docu film, whatever you want to call it. Daryl Anka did one called Dearly Departed. That was very much covering those aspects about what happens to the dead, why do they linger around, where they go, and things like that. I think it's available on Amazon, if I'm not mistaken. But if you're more interested in that kind of from Bashar's perspective and what they basically talk about happens to spirit, he basically kind of put a film together. So I don't know if it's something interesting for you, but I just want to put that out there.
There's when you're in the astral, does it kind of look full color to you, or is it kind of grayscale, murky?
Yeah, it depends on it's not that that's just your perception. I know what you're talking about. It's just there's times where, so your vision is often the last thing to come in. So whenever you are shifting to the other side, the first thing that's going to happen is you can generally feel. So you might be able to feel a space that's not the space you thought you were in. And then the next thing is usually your hearing, where, you might actually hear people talking, or you might hear some clanging and banging or something like that. And then the last thing to come in is your vision. And your vision doesn't always come in perfectly. So because it's like you're hanging between the realms. You know what I mean? So when that happens, you get that kind of like grayscale fuzzy look, and then a lot of times, even if you can see color, it's still very fuzzy, and there's like tracers. You know, it's not very clear. But if you can get, you know, like I say, this is all has to do with the place that you're in from a perspective point of view. If you're in the right perspective, you can see perfectly on the other side, and you can also feel your 3D body. But it's an art to get into that particular shape, you know, without help. Your guides may help you with something like that, you know.
I came across, I know I'm asking just random questions. I came across this really interesting, I think it's German, subtitled documentary. I'm sure you could look it up by searching, where this lady was trying to teach kids how to see without their eyes. And it seemed legit to me. And the kids would wear these masks, and they were rock climbing like at a kid play center. And they interviewed the kids, and they were just learning. And the way they described it was they would learn to cover, and then they would see a peephole in their eye, and then they'd train themselves, and over a few months the people would get bigger and bigger, and then they could see enough to interact with the real world. But they said their vision, the perception was off. So if that's real, do you think they're using a third or astral eye? I don't know.
Yeah, you're not using your physical when you're seeing it. When you're seeing into the astral, whether you're actually in your light body in the astral, where you literally have a body, but it's not the physical body we have here, or you're remote viewing or something like that, there's almost always some kind of skew because you're not using your eyes. Your eyes are very much, even though we think of our eyes as being seeing exactly what's there, your eyes are very much a filter. So what you call your normal perspective is actually a very filtered view. Your real perspective is more like the view that you would see from the astral sense, but you're not looking through eyes. So, you know, it's like you're using a completely different instrument to see the same thing. So you will always see that perspective is different. And, you know, a lot of people, when they get out of body for the first time, they look around the room, and the table that was always there is not there anymore. You know, it's stuff like that. Like, things are not quite the same in that realm as they are, you know, when you're looking through your eyes, you're literally looking through a physical instrument. So yeah, you're definitely going to see something different without them.
All right.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah.
No, Paulie, thank you. Thanks for chiming in. I appreciate it. And also to Terry as well. Well, now I'm definitely going to make it quits here because I need some sleep and I got to go to work tomorrow. So, but yeah, no, Stephen, thanks again. Let's try this goodbye for a second time. And
okay, all right, sounds
yeah.
good.
So yeah, no, anytime, you know, chime in. You doing open lines or whatever, let me know, and I'm sure people will always, you know, wouldn't mind asking other questions that I might not know to ask. One thing for me, especially, it's like I have to always put myself in the position of like a fresh brain, and then ask questions that a person would maybe ask, you know, because sometimes things are just given to me based on my own experiences, so I don't think about asking them. So I'm glad others can chime in and get that curiosity, you know, answered for them, in case I don't do a good job and ask those questions that are obvious for me, but maybe not for some others.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think you did fantastic. I know exactly what you mean. I do the same thing, and it's really nice to be able to answer questions that I haven't even thought about in so long. So
Right. Yeah,
if anybody's
exactly.
got anything,
It's like
bring
you
it
already
on.
passed that one, and then someone comes back, it's like, hey, what about this? Yeah. Well, Stephen, thank you again. You know, you're always welcome here. So I hope to talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye. All right. So let's see here. We had So yeah, once a month, I'm going to try to have Sally on again to do some readings again. As I mentioned in the description below, you can book a reading with her and get more in depth. And it really helps out just to at least have somebody maybe affirm or reaffirm some things, and then also sometimes give some pointers, to how to move forward for those that are always unsure, because it almost acts like I can't think of the word right now. My brain is too fuzzy, but it's like a psychiatrist. They're kind of like getting that reassurance that, hey, if anything, however, crazy your life is, it's in the numbers. There's a path set for you. Follow it, and you can't go wrong. And I don't know that there's anything wrong with that. It's such a positive thing. It's no different than getting. But it's, for me personally, it's better than taking some pills to make you feel better or other stuff, to where you might not even get that much in-depth information, as opposed to numerology reading like that. So anyway, so yeah, go check it out. And so not tomorrow, on Friday, I'm going to confirmed having Penny Kelly on, and she's an author of a book called Robes. I'm sorry, I don't remember the subtitle of it right now, but definitely going to have her on Friday, and excited to talk to her about that, because her book, I believe, is more of upcoming like information that she was given by these 5 robed beings, if I'm not mistaken, and which direction the world is going into and what's going to be happening. So I don't know how long ago that was. Again, I'll find all that out. And as always, if you want to ask her questions, you can join Telegram and ask her yourself, or in the chat, simply put the 3 stars there and ask your question. So that way I know it's directed towards her, and it'll pop out at me a lot easier. And so, but yeah, thank you all very much for sticking around for this long. I appreciate everyone that participated and asked questions. I hope you got some answers as well. So, next time I'll see you on Fridays, 7 p.m. Is when usually it starts, Central Time. So I hope you join us. So have a good night, good day, wherever you might be around the world, and I'll see you guys next time.